Could I ask everyone to put your phones on silent, turn them off, or put them on flight mode, please, so we don't have any disturbances. This meeting will be live streamed via Teams webinar facilities. Recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused, or transmitted without the prior written consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and will be made publicly available on Council's website. Persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Item 2 is acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug people and respects the history and culture of the elders, both past and present. The prayer this evening is going to be given by Janet Clayton. Thank you, Janet.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. And Father, I just ask you that you take note of these men and women here tonight. They have put their names forward to be the servant of the people of Oberon and district. Father, when we pray that as they go about their work to serve us, that you might give them wisdom, you might give them patience and understanding, that we know that it's not an easy job to do because we all have different requests and that. And I just ask you, Father, that they might turn to you, seek your wisdom, because it's the best that they'll find anywhere. And Father, we just pray now that as they go about their business tonight, they might be conscious of their servanthood towards the people of Oberon. And we just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Okay, record of attendance. I note that there are no leaves of absence, many councillors. And I note that this evening minutes will be taken by Hannah Booth, Communications Coordinator. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest by councillors? There are no declarations of interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary. We move on. I note that there are no nil. Presentations. There are no presentations this evening. 7 is questions from the public. Public gallery is open to members of the community. The community is to be given the opportunity to ask questions at the commencement of the council meeting, and the mayor is to ask the questions from the gallery prior to the commencement of the ordinary meeting. Members of the public wishing to address council permitted to do so, providing the following guidelines are adhered to. The person asking a question at the council meeting must clearly state their name and what capacity they are acting. If the person asking the question is acting as another person, organisation's agent, I must advise council or have the prior consent authority. Questions for the public is not an opportunity to debate with elected representatives or staff. It is an opportunity for the community to ask a question in relation to an issue and put a point of view relating to an issue that may be causing interest or concern. Due to time constraints, a time frame of 3 minutes per speaker is allocated. All questions and comments must be directed through me as the mayor, and in the instance of question, if it cannot be answered, it will be taken on notice and a response given within a reasonable period. This is the only opportunity for a community member to address council during an ordinary meeting. Are there any questions from the public? No, there are none. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Recommendations of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 18th of March 2025 be confirmed. Do I have a motion? Councillor Hayden, a seconder, please. Councillor Graham, thank you. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the minutes, but there needs to be a couple of edits in there, a couple of small edits. On page 18, the mayoral minute, on 9.2, part A, third line, it states in P, Oberon community, which is in the community, that needs editing. Page 20, part 2 of
Sorry, just hold on. Hannah, did you get that? Right, okay. Yeah.
page 20, which is part 2 of 10.3, it states a quote be provided to council with a quote. I don't believe that that sentence is constructed validly. I don't recall that as, that might need to be checked for.
I think it was meant to read, a quote be provided to council together with a recommendation on a funding course.
So
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, so the minutes are incorrect there and that will need to be edited. And also under the grants update, the date former during February 25 should be 2025.
Okay, we note those changes. Councillor Graham,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I've nothing.
any other discussion on the minutes? Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One further correction on page 27 of the minutes, item 16.1, which was the 11 lot industrial subdivision. I voted against that motion, and when we came out of confidential, I made it clear that I voted against, but I'm recorded as voting in favour.
That's item 16.1,
0.1.
yes.
And just following on from that, and it does happen from time to time that there are little corrections. I was just wondering if it might be sensible for the draft minutes to be circulated to councillors shortly after the meeting, so we can point out anything and not have to do it at the following meeting.
We'll take it on notice, we'll look at it, whether it's feasible to do it, yes, and if there are any changes, then they can be marked up by councillors. Okay.
That was all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion? If not, I put the motion, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Go to item 9, the mayoral minute and report. Recommendation, the report item 9.01 is received as information. I move it. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor. I think the minute speaks for itself in relation to meetings, representations and correspondence.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Another extremely busy month, yourself and our General Manager. On behalf of the community, I would like to say as a new councillor, the extreme amount of work that I've realised that you and Gary both put in, and you're a tremendous team together. And I'd just like to, on behalf of council and our community, thank you both for all your work. It's for a new council, it's quite amazing the effort you're both putting in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to have Frank O'Connor speak for himself, not for me.
Yeah.
And if you have a look at the minutes in the meeting, I think they, I don't think you attended the briefing session. It's recorded there.
Which one's that? At Black
Bring
Springs?
up your ass.
No, 11th
I
of
beg your pardon, what did you say, Councillor McCarthy?
Oh, he's grinning it because I just said,
You just made a defamatory remark.
Yep.
You got one warning.
thank you.
Yes, Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your narrow minute. I did want to put forward some corrections here. The 10th of April, there was no Black Springs Community Association meeting. 10th of April was actually a Thursday and we don't have meetings on Thursday. The 11th of April and for the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation and Council informal briefing session of both a Friday. Our informal briefing session was on the Tuesday prior. So those last three on your meetings are incorrect. If they could be rectified, please.
I think the 10th of April was the Thursday, it was the Burriga Community Association meeting.
Yeah, it's not Black Springs. So that will need an edit because it wasn't the Black Springs Community Association. And the 11th of April, 2025 was not the council informal briefing session. That was the Tuesday prior. and the Central New South Wales Joint Organisational Regional Priorities event. I don't recall that being held last Friday either.
It was the same day
As
at an
the,
IBS.
it was as the IBS, so both of those are incorrect. If they could have some edits, please. And then I have a few questions about some of the correspondence, if I may. Should I continue? Are you still reading?
Right, yes.
Okay, so the 19th of March, the Legislative Assembly Committee in the Transport and Infrastructure invitation. Did you respond to that? Are you going for that? And what was that about? 19th of March.
We haven't responded. I didn't response to it. Electric and electric.
This is correspondence. Haven't we gone through the correspondence?
I'll provide a copy of the correspondence. I'll check whether we've responded to it.
Okay, now on the 28th of March, can you call Jess Jennings' contact for Minister Sharp? And I do note that you did have a meeting with Minister Sharp in relation to several items. The wind farm and.
No, we have not had a meeting with Minister Sharp.
Right.
We had sent, you will recall that I sent a letter to Jess Jennings and Stephen Lawrence in relation to economic and social impact analysis, requesting funding for that, to undertake that independently by council.
Yeah.
Jess Jennings came back to us and said he had a contact with Minister Sharp's office and we should be directing a letter to that. We have not drafted. I am in the process of drafting a response to that now.
Okay. And the meeting you had on the 26th of March with the Minister for Water, Rose Jackson, that might have been where I got a bit.
And that was in relation to the STP.
And how did that one go?
We have sent a letter to the Minister and the Treasurer as a result of that, requesting that the funding transfer from the Restart program to the Safe and Secure program, because the Restart grants are going to end. And we've also seen if there are any other opportunities for additional funding.
Okay, and I did want to get some clarification around a William Cox or a group. I'm not familiar with that name.
Okay, as part of being the head of the chairman of the transport group for the joint organisation, I met with Bill Cox in Sydney, who's the head of Oregon Engineering, because they originally did the original plan for a tunnel right through the Blue Mountains. And then with the cost of that, it went to the shorter tunnel from Blackheath down to the bottom. I was asking him about the feasibility of actually tunnelling under the Blue Mountains. He said geologically, their assessment was it was indeed possible. It's a question of money.
Yeah.
And depending on the white paper that comes out, the state government's meant to be introducing a white paper, bringing out a white paper in relation to transport options across the Blue Mountains, May, June, I think. Don't hold me to that, but that's my last recollection of when it was meant to be coming out. We may, the JO may look at engaging Oregon to provide some assistance in relation to that, unless they have a conflict of interest because the state government does some work. But they have already done a lot of work, so it provides us all the central west.
Okay, thank you. And the last.
That's detailed enough.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. And the 31st of March, I note that Robbie Webb seeking an opportunity to present to council. Did he want to come and do a presentation, and can we chase up for him to come and do that?
So I asked Mr. Webb, how long his presentation would be and whether he'd like to do it as a presentation or as a presentation, a longer presentation, because I said for him it was 15 minutes, and he would like to do it to council out of session of a council meeting, 30 minutes, because there is some confidential information he may be disclosing. So I will work through with Hannah and Sharon to organise an appropriate time.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just say further to that? That was the question I put to Stromlo and PAG. Would they have someone come in and do a presentation regarding the fire? So I assumed it would be part of their next presentation to us.
I'm not sure whether, I think that Rob Webb's doing this, I'm not sure if he's with Stromlo
No, he's
or
not.
PAG. I think he's doing it independently, so he's coming to tell us, do a presentation. If it appears when he does the presentation that there is some work he's doing for Stromlo TAG, then I think we approach that then. But as far as I'm aware, he didn't say that to me when he.
No.
But I'm assuming councils think that's a good idea. All right. So I'm pursuing that. Yes. Anything further? Councillor McCarthy? Did you nod? Oh, sorry. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of mine have been answered or partly answered. Just following on from your meeting with the Minister about the STP, is there still a need at this stage for the working party to meet, or are we going to wait until we get some answers on the funding?
Councillor Tucker, I think Gary Stiles at the moment is preparing some work to see what we can actually achieve with the current funding we've got and what staging we'd look at. So I think there is going to be a meeting with the STP working party in the next week or two. I think,
and that's partly what I was wondering, but then I was concerned, well, it's not a lot of point in working out what we're going to do with the current money if we end up losing the current money.
well, we're relatively confident after our meeting with the Minister that we won't,
Okay.
but I can't guarantee that. But I think we should plough along. And if they do say, you know, use the money or lose it, well, then we want to be in a position to move. And that means we will have a scope of work that we can actually do something for that money. And so I think it's important the STP has a meeting, working party has a meeting.
Thank you. And my other question is on page 38 from correspondence, 13th of March. The third one down, it mentions ceremonies team, and I'm curious as to what that team is or where they are from.
Or that information to the council.
Sorry.
Yeah,
We'd be
that's-
happy to provide that information to the council.
Yeah, okay.
It relates to citizenship. So
Citizenship ceremonies, yes.
Yeah, so it's like from the federal government, the department who looks after that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's right. They send you a letter and say, this is what you should say in the
Yeah,
ceremony.
okay.
This is how you should organise the ceremony. This is what the mayor should
Yeah,
say.
no,
We change it a bit because we have Rotary and others involved, but they give you a package.
That's fine. I just hadn't
Yeah.
heard of the ceremonies team and didn't know who they were. That's all I need. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I looked at it and I thought, yeah, but I'm sure that's what it is, yeah.
Okay.
Home Affairs, the Department of Home Affairs proposing.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I put the motion that the report item 9.01 is received and made. All in favour? Subject to those changes made by Councillor Hayes. Move to 10, notice of motion 10.1, council stealing policy. The motion is that council discontinue the previous practice of giving priority to sealing 1 to 2 kilometres of roads each year and in future allocate funding in its budget based on perceived needs and available funds within the IP&R framework. Councillor Tucker, are you leading this?
Yes.
Seconder? Councillor Springbok, thank you. Speak to it.
Yes, very briefly, Mr. Mayor, most of it is in the comment in the business paper. The important bit is the final paragraph, just to stress again that it is not in any way trying to prevent council making a decision that it wants to go ahead with some new ceiling work. It is simply to remove that as a starting point each time we develop our budget, so that it reduces the pressure on council and on staff to try to come up with ways of funding that. and leaves it open for us to either do that or something else, whatever we consider is the most appropriate with the available funds in any particular year. So that's all the purpose is. Thank you.
I fully support this motion, and as Councillor Tucker has indicated, the last paragraph fully explains it, why we should do it. And it's just important as well for us at this point in time to be very fiscally responsible, as we've indicated throughout this new term.
So can I ask, as a matter of one of law, General Manager, is there currently a motion on the books passed by council that we seal 1 to 2 kilometres a year, and do we need a rescission motion therefore?
Through the chair, the item sits as part of your delivery program that you've held over the past 4 years, and continuation of that would be seen unless a decision to do something else would override that. So it's not a rescission motion that you need. It's part of your delivery program, and you're looking at dealing with that delivery program now, which is why Councillor Tucker has included the funding within the IPNR framework, because it sits within that delivery program or operational plan from year on.
No, thank you. I just want to see clarity because I thought there had been a resolution at some stage in the past.
Council certainly supported the 1 to 2 kilometres in the past, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCarthy?
I'd like to see the policy retained. There's several businesses that use this to try and leave it to enhance their business and improve it. Waldara, Taddycool or some. And when you see the outcome of Currajong, it might show you that we need this policy in there to improve the extension of the seal. And the policy come about when the manager and Gary and Chris Shoemaker were using reconstruction roads as a part of this 1 to 2. So it had to become new. In other words, where we go around that part of the Campbell's River Road, around near Squashville Turn, they were using that reconstruction road as 1 to 2 kilometres. So we come back and said it had to be new work, not reconstruction work. And that's where the policy come about. They were using it to do reconstruction work, not new. Anyway, it's up to the council whether you want to retain it, but I think it should be retained. It gives the business people an opportunity to come along and show that, you know, they've got a business out there. And like when I was involved with the seal on Mayfield Road, you could see the cars coming down the edge of the seal, turn around and go back. They wouldn't go down. It's just some people won't go down dirt roads.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking against it? Anyone else want to speak for it? Councillor Hayden?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just, get a bit of speaking for, speaking against. I just want to speak that I'd like to see the motion clearly, a bit clearer defined in parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perhaps, instead of just being in one part. Because that's just, to me, it's just untidy. I'd like to just see things just broken up a little bit more and have a bit more clarity.
What is a comment?
No, that the motion, the comment is just a comment. The comment's not the motion. The motion is your 2.5 lines.
So are you proposing an amendment?
I'll put up an amendment if I may. I haven't sent this one through to Hannah. There's 5 parts to it though. And you can either accept or refuse if. Okay, that council 1 endorses and adopts the road sealing evaluation and funding framework policy as provided in the document titled Oberon Council Road Sealing Policy that council will have to adopt at a future time. You accept of that? Because you're going to have to create a policy to actually have something.
No, I don't accept that as a.
Okay, don't worry about it. We'll leave it till another time because it's not, doesn't have clarity in, leave the amendment or withdraw it. It doesn't have clarity in that, so I won't be able to support it.
Councillor Taggart, you reply?
Well, I just stuck my hand up to following your question about a resignation motion. That's what I had thought originally, and I asked the GM who said, no, didn't need a resignation motion, and this was the way to get that resolution from years ago off the books and gets to please flow the budget fund.
Anything else in your?
No, that's all. Thank you, Mr.
All right. I put the motion as drafted. All in favour? So we've got Councillor Trembath, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Graham, Councillor Tucker, Councillor McKibben. Against, we have Councillor Everest, Councillor Hayden and Councillor McCarthy. Where the motion carried. Thank you. 10.2, trees on council reserves, policy 4109. The motion is 1, that policy 4109, trees on council road reserves, be reviewed. 2, that discussions be held with Essential Energy concerning cooperative arrangements for trimming of street trees to achieve clearance from power lines that still leave the trees in a healthy and attractive condition. Councillor Tucker, are you moving this?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Seconder? Councillor Hayden? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the comments, I've briefly explained what has prompted me to put this motion up. I wasn't intending to get into the details of those reasons tonight. The only purpose is in order to start the process of reviewing that policy. And when we review it, that's the time to have the more detailed debate about what should or shouldn't be in it. So that's all it is, that we review the policy. That would come back to council to put it on public exhibition so we can debate it at that time. And then if there are comments from the public, we can debate it again at that time. So that would be the appropriate time to go into the details. And the second part is simply requesting that we have some discussions with Essential Energy to try to come up with some way of achieving their purposes and our purposes at the same time, rather than leaving butchered trees that I've seen in a number of places around town. I know many years ago we used to work together, but that was when Essential Energy did the work themselves, and it's probably harder now that they use contractors. But again, not wanting to have a detailed discussion about that at the moment, just asking that council have some discussions with Essential Energy to see what they can come up with. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hayden?
Yes, I'm happy to support this and thank Councillor Tucker for putting that forward. It's all too often that we see Essential Energy and others come along and half hack into trees and everything. So I would like to make sure that we review this policy and that the discussions are had in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Trembath, do you want to speak?
No.
Anyone else? Councillor Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes the simplest notices of motion are really good ones, and this is a very good notice of motion because I've got personal experience recently of Essential Energy use contractors, and depending on the contractors, depending on what they do. So unless we give them some direction, it'll be all over the place. So it's a good notice of motion.
Thank you. I'd make 2 observations. The first is obviously we've got a Spackman Mossop report, which we've obviously for the planting of trees. So we have to take that into cognizance as well with this policy on the basis that some of the trees that may end up being removed by Essential Energy, there will be replacements put behind so that they don't go into the power line. So I think, and all I'm saying is when we consider the policy, we might need to look at that. As with Councillor O'Connor, I've had some bad experiences, which I probably should put on the record with Essential Energy removing the wrong trees recently. So I understand, yes. So, all right. Any further discussion? Do you want to? Yes, Councillor McCarthy.
I'm not against doing this, but we have a policy with our undergrounding power with Essential Energy, and they take no notice. But in the first instance, when Essential Energy attend to a nuisance tree, it's the Essential Energy officer that gives the direction to the private contractor. The private contractor doesn't go there, and someone's given that private contractor It's a description of the work that they want carried out, and that's an essential energy employee. He was in Fox Lane the other day.
I take your point, Councillor McCarthy. I was with the central person and we marked pink dots on the trees to be removed, and the contractor came in and removed the other trees.
I'll second that.
So, you know, while I appreciate what you say, the communication between the contractor and Essential Energy does not always work correctly. But take your point, yeah. Any further discussion? All right, put the motion, all in favour, carried unanimously, thank you. We go to 11, councils and delegates reports. Oberon Arts Council meeting, 11.1. The recommendation is that council receive and note the Oberon Arts Council delegates report. Do I have a motion? Councillor Graham. Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Everest, thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Oh, yes, I would like to move that we note the minutes. I'll just talk about two of the points that I've written there. The Arts and Health Program. I think in a previous report, I've written about the spray, the puppet, and by all reports, it was very successful. And it was really good that Oberon was part of the pilot. And got responses from patients there who hadn't responded to much at all. So it was a really worthwhile thing. And I'll just say that Oberon Arts Council is seeking further funding to continue on with the program, and it's well worthwhile. And I know I've mentioned before the repairs in the common to the walls, where the memory walls and the paving is, and also in the terrazzo. And I think Arts Council is going to follow through with that. That's probably the rest is in the minutes you can read.
Councillor Everest?
I just have one question. What was MPS?
Multi-purpose centre at the hospital.
Okay, thank you.
In other words.
Other than, like nothing more.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor.
Quick question, the art show at Melbury, a little bit more detail?
I don't have much more detail except that it's on later. It was going to be earlier, like I don't know, April or May, and it's now over.
You'll keep us advised? You'll keep us advised?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? If not, I put the motion, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. We go to 11.2, which is Central Tablelands Weeds Authority meeting. Recommendation, council receive and note the Central Tablelands Weeds Authority meeting, Gallup report held in Bathurst on Friday the 21st of February 2025. I'll move it. Seconder, please. Councillor Connor, thank you. I think the report speaks for itself. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a very good report. I just have a few questions. I won't start in any order. In terms of the roadside site spraying program, it seems as though we're on the bottom of the list, I guess, in terms of those councils who've been receiving or having spraying done. Some have 31%, 53%, some have 100, and we're 21%. And the costs also range from $500 odd dollars down to $237, if that's correct.
That's right. We have allocated the additional 50,000.
Exactly, yeah. I guess what that looks to me, if we go back to a motion was put back in the December meeting to ask for tenders to do it ourselves, it just seems to me on a 499 kilometre basis, if we can get it done for $250 a kilometre, we save some $150,000. I think the more important point is that not only will we save, we hopefully will get a better job and more timely.
So I've asked the general manager, and he's assured me we've now got all the information we need from CTWA to be able to go out with a request for tender.
Fantastic. And just a couple other questions with regard to the Forestry Corporation. So Forestry Corporation has an annual commitment of 20,000. Is that just in the Oberon LGA or total?
Total. We've asked that to be increased.
So they're only spending $20,000 contributing. It's sort of outrageous in a way that obscene. I've got here that
that's for the roads.
yeah, but it's obscene in terms of they're not a good community member in terms of this particular activity.
We are making representations that they need to increase that funding considerably.
And then the last one is with regard to inspections, which is I guess the core of core of the business. With those inspection lists down the page from July 24 to January 25, 259 high risk and there's 273. Is there, I know you wouldn't have it at hand, but are some of those Oberon specific inspections? Yeah. No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one question. We'll go back to the Forestry Corporation. Their commitment's $20,000, which is extremely low, and making representations. Are the representations they're making to have that increased on the basis of a kilometre rate of an average of what we are currently paying?
So what we're doing with forestry is we have a MOU in place, basically where you have a forestry road, which fronts a road, there's usually a fence, but not always. Source Creek's, not Source Creek. There are some roads that don't have a fence, but most have a fence. So what we said to forestry, rather than do it to the fence, and then you come along, we will engage the contractor and then we'll do it all to the side of the pine trees, basically. So that's what we're working, and that's why we're asking them up the funding considerably. It's been at the Chief Fire Security Officer level at this stage, but I'm intending to speak to the head of all the districts.
It's just that we have a good guide as to the cost of it to us as a different.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I put the motion. All in favour? You carried unanimously. Okay. All committee reports. 12.1 is the Audit Risk Improvement Committee meeting. The recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on 12th of March 2025. Do I have a motion? Councillor Tucker, you attend that meeting?
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Seconder, please. Councillor Alevers, thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any further commentary apart from what's in the minutes. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, providing I was awake at that point in the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Everest.
Been other than being an interesting meeting, there's nothing more to add.
Was there any further discussion in relation to, I think there's plant audit, isn't there, currently underway?
Yes, there is a planned audit underway, which, as you know, is one of my babies. So I'll be looking forward to seeing either a draft report or a final report, and because that's something I've been commenting on for several years. But I don't think there was anything in particular that came out of this meeting, and it was just noting that is in progress. So yes, the director wants, or the GM want to add anything? Don't think there's anything in particular.
Just through the chair, they in fact were on site during the meeting. No, in fact, in the organisation during the time.
And noting I've also had, or in fact, several of us had a separate discussion with the auditors.
Okay. Corporate Services Director, you have to, you want to add?
Through the chair, we just at the moment are just doing some clarifications on bits and pieces of follow-up from that meeting. So the draft report, we haven't seen anything just yet, but it's not too far away.
No. Anything else out of the ARIC meeting you want to comment on?
Through the chair, we also one of the big bits of work was a gap analysis that the ARIC had asked us to do in response to OLG audit on roads management. So we presented that gap analysis, and some of the findings in that have informed some of the work we're doing in forming the next round of IPNR documentation and things like that.
That's good. Okay. No further discussion. I put the motion, all in favour? Yep. Go to item 13, reports for decision, policy 2213, financial reserves policy.
Have an alternate.
All right, I'll read this first, then I'll allow you to put the alternatives to the motion, right?
No.
Obviously.
Motion.
All right, you've got a so what's the alternative? Have you got
You can pop it up on the screen. I've sent it through earlier. Reason for this is to just give a little bit more broader clarity and just to mitigate some risks that I felt needed. Okay, would you like me to start reading?
Yes, please.
Okay. The alternate recommendation is that Council 1 place the draft financial reserves policy on exhibition. That's still the same as the original. 2, adopt the financial reserves policy with the following amendments, subject to submissions. I've put in there, A, introduce a risk buffer requirement mandating a minimum reserve level equal to 3 to 6 months of operational expenditure consistent with local government financial best practice. B, establish a strategic reserve growth plan to reinvest interest from reserve investments into strategic reserves, set performance benchmarks, a percentage coverage of capital backlog, etc. Part C, approve the closure of the A to O, which is the the legacy internal reserves as listed, with reporting on residual project risks or commitments to avoid any service disruptions. D, create the following restructured internal reserves, which is as per the previous one. Adding there, the purpose covers infrastructure renewal plus contingency for co-funding grants, urgent works and natural disasters. Require that all allocations include a risk adjusted forecast of drawdown. 3, instruct the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, Matt, to report annually on reserve balance trends, comparison against reserve adequacy benchmarks, and the use of funds versus approved strategic goals. 4, delegate authority to the General Manager as per the original. 5, as per the original.
Have a seconder? Right, can you talk to it, please, Councillor Hayden?
Well, going throughout the business papers, we've got a lot of financial issues and there's a lot of risks that aren't being addressed. And having a bit of a deep dive, we can have a report and a recommendation that's narrow like this, or we can expand on it. And we need to get some better financial clarity around these things. It'll ensure basic service delivery continues during any kind of revenue shocks that we might endure. And it gives a bit more flexibility, and we need to have a buffer requirement in some of these reserves, because we can't just have reserves without having the buffer and making sure that we can meet our requirements. Our normal financial day-to-day requirements throughout the time.
Councillor Everest?
Got nothing more to add. I agree with that.
Yes, Councillor. I'll foreshadow going back to a motion in the form of the original. Steve?
You got someone here, Andrew?
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Or rather than foreshadowing, I was going to move the original as an amendment to councillor Hayden's motion.
Okay. Second, councillor Collins.
It's foreshadowing. I'm sorry,
I'm not
No,
foreshadowing.
he's putting an amendment. He's putting an
I'm
amendment.
sorry.
Putting an amendment. You're seconding the amendment? Yes, councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason I'm moving the original recommendation as an amendment is not that I'm necessarily opposed to what councillor Hayden has put forward. It is just too much to bake in right now. I think a better process would be that we agree to put it on public exhibition and that councillor Hayden can make a submission during the exhibition period. The points that she makes can be assessed, and when it comes back to council for adoption, that's the time that we can debate in more detail any changes that councillor Hayden is proposing. So I just think that's a better process.
Colin?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I was going to make exactly the same comments, and also I wasn't, well, I won't make a comment about the risks that we were not aware of, but I follow the same path councillor Taylor's put forward.
Discussion on the, yes, councillor Hayden.
Yeah, I understand what councillor Tucker's saying, being second term, all through the first term. We've been stung previously when we've been told, oh, we can put a submission. Do councillors actually understand, and have you actually intook that information from prior issues? When we make a submission to anything that is on public exhibition, we cannot be in this room. We have made a submission, it is then therefore a conflict and we must leave the room. That is fact. So the reason I have put it up as this is because a lot of the times we want to do things and change policy, and being councillors and part of the governing body, we're trying to make sure that our council is going to be financially stable and have some processes in place that we need to make sure that are there for the protection of this community and the finances. And every time something like this comes up, it's always blown in the wind and put to the side so that we don't actually make the changes. And then when it comes time we put a submission, the changes never get made anyway. So that's all I have to say against that. Thank you.
Councillor Hayden, if it's a policy and you've made a submission, where does it say you have to remove yourself from the meeting and not vote on it in the code of meeting practice?
It doesn't, I didn't say it, stated that in there.
Well, why do you think you have to?
Because there was an issue last year, the year before, where it said councillors can make a submission to any changes of something that was put on exhibition, and the general manager should remember this because it was the general manager's words to me that said, you've put a submission, you can't be there to vote on it.
So it's a policy though, this is policy.
Through the chair, and not understanding or knowing of what that means. If you lodge a submission regarding something like a planning decision,
Yeah.
absolutely you would not be in this space. If you want to put some words to inform a policy, staff will put that into the report as part of that consideration of that policy.
Well, why aren't we doing this prior to actually bringing them to council? Why aren't we having a policy that where we sit down and we go through the policies, we make sure everything is in there and then we bring it to council? And I'm not going to talk any further on it because I don't want to hold up time because this is getting nowhere. I'm just saying I'm going to speak against that. Thank you.
Okay, but I think if you put a submission in, councillor Hayden, it will not preclude you from being in the room and voting on the policy or any amendment to the policy, whatever you do. If it's, as the general manager says, if the planning issue or something which you have a pecuniary interest in is different, but not the
Thank
policy.
you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will take your information on board and I'm not speaking any further on this matter. Thank you.
We did workshop this reserves. We had a council reserves at work, a council workshop on the reserves, as you're aware. So, okay, sorry. Councillor Taylor, is this a reply or?
It's when everyone else is finished.
Yeah. Any other further discussion on this matter? reply, councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just going to make a almost identical points as far as I'm aware. We as councillors can comment when policies go out on public exhibition, and that we can then be present when those policies come back for further debate, including the comments that we have made. And I've done that several times when I've put in submissions on several roads policies, and I'll further explain them when it just come back to council. So I will be perfectly happy when, at the end of the exhibition period, when it comes back to council, including Councillor Hayden's and anyone else's comments, and including staff comments on Councillor Hayden's comments, I'm very happy to look at it in much more detail, and some of those may well end up getting incorporated. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I put the motion, which is as, sorry, I put the amendment, sorry, which now be as per the original recommendation. All in favour? I now put that the amendment now becomes the motion. I now put the motion. All in favour? So all in favour except councillor Hayden. Yep. Go to 13. 3.
862.
Missed that one. Policy 1103, payment of expenses and provision of facilities to councillors. The recommendation is that council, 1, endorse policy 1103, payment of expenses and provision of facilities to councillors, and place it on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. 2, if no submissions are received during the exhibition period, the policy be adopted as presented. 3, delegate to the general manager to amend any minor changes proposed. 4, note the 6-monthly reporting requirements, itemised individual councillor expenditure. 5, note the 3-monthly reimbursement window of an expense being incurred. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor O'Connor, seconder, please. Councillor McCarthy, thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. An excellent report. Couple of comments. With regard to the 2024 year, did any travel or allowances or professional development allowances exceed the amount that was under the policy?
Not yet. Not through the chair, not as yet.
Is it 24?
24, you're not 25 yet.
30th of June, no? And,
Through the chair, 23, 24 or
yeah,
24?
23, 24.
I just thought there was maybe a couple of slight changes. It says under point 4, note that the 6-monthly reporting requirements itemising individual council expenditure. Would that include allowances and travel? Under point 4, it does. And then should we also have a point 6 saying the new payment schedule would commence 1st of July? Because after the, it just makes it easier, cleaner to compare.
So the policy should apply from the 1st of July. The policy, I think, probably.
Thank you, Mr. Good.
I did.
Oh, sorry.
I'm happy with the addition and straightforward.
I did raise just a couple of things with the general manager. One was, I know some councillors do the travel expenses 3 monthly, so they don't actually put the expense until the 4th month. But I'm sure that that would be okay. Because quite often the council do quarterly or other expenses. Just like but checking yes.
Haven't got the hand up.
Okay.
It's my policy.
Yeah. And I did ask how we're tracking for 2024-25 in relation to our expenses, and I'm sure we're within the previous confines, are we?
At this point, Mr Mayor.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, Mr Mayor, there's policy that states that, we have to report 3 monthly. We can't do it 4th monthly or 6th monthly or anything. We actually have to conform to what we've been told. If that clarifies why I might have been shaking my head, because that was a stipulation. I've also had an email, Sharon's emailed us, we must do these claims every 3 months. That's it. No longer than 3 months, or you don't get a look in.
That's, sorry,
Yes, Councillor.
that's difficult. That's putting a claim in as opposed to how it's reported. Would that be right?
So my discussion with the general manager went as something like this. So if I put a claim in from 1st of January to 31st of March, which follows again, I may not put it in till the 15th of April. So technically that would be outside the 3 monthly period. So if there's an issue in this, I would like to make the 3 monthly, 4 monthly. For that particular purpose, because I think claims are normally follow a lot of other accounting practices, including BAS, is you put it in the 4th month, the month in after the quarter.
So through the chair, it's hard to put your claim in every 3 months if you're putting it in before the 3 months has ended.
That's right.
First
That's
thing.
right.
The second thing I would suggest is that we would like to see them more regular than what we do in order to try and make the payment of those expenses claims within the year in which they occurred. So that's why we've asked for that. I don't think any council has been disadvantaged by not putting it in, but we try and put some processes. Councillor Hayden rightly indicated, put it in every 3 months, so we've got a good track of when these things have occurred.
Okay, any further discussion? I've put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Passed unanimously.
Through the chair with the addition.
Oh, but the addition of item 6, which was that the new policy should apply from the 1st of July 2025. You go to 13.3, policy 2110, workplace health and safety. The recommendation is council place the revised workplace health and safety policy 2110 on public exhibition for 28 days and submissions be invited to council during that period. 2, if no submissions are received from the exhibition period, the policy is to be adopted as presented. 3, delegate to the general manager to amend any minor changes proposed. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Hayden, seconder, please. Councillor Prembar, thank you. Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, I'm not going to bother putting any amendment on this, but I will be sending an email. This policy is lacking quite a bit. It's lacking in the clarification of responsibilities, and it needs more structured incident reporting processes in there and more specific worker engagement. So we have to broaden that policy quite a bit. Thank you.
Councillor Tremor?
I'm happy to move the motion and the policy as your next session.
Any other discussion on this policy? Take this policy is procedure. It seems like that. So some of the detail you may be looking at, Councillor Hayden, falls in the procedures that apply underneath this policy. The policy is the overarching document. So if you put your email through, the general manager may be able to clarify
I'll
those
address it
questions.
at that time.
All right. No further discussion? Do you want to write a reply or not?
Okay.
Thank you. I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Passed unanimously. 13.4 Community Energy Upgrade Fund Round 2 application. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorse the findings of the report identifying the Oberon Water Treatment Plant, Council Administration Building and Council Depot as priority projects for Community Energy Upgrade Fund application. 2, approve the preparation and submission of application under CEUF Round 2 for the identified projects with the following co-contributions to support the application. A co-contribution of up to 130,000 from the Water Fund Reserve. B, a co-contribution of up to $70,075 from the Council Buildings Renewal Reserve. 3, request a further report outlining proposed payback mechanisms for the identified reserves to be provided prior to signing the funding agreement should the application be successful. A motion, please. Councillor O'Connor, seconder, please. Councillor Graham, thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank, through you, I'd like to thank the Director of Corporate Services for his work with us. Outstanding. I wish it's just a great opportunity to leverage and to save money and also at the same time show some leadership in this area. So thanks again. No further comment.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, the report was really detailed, gave us a lot of information. I would second it.
Further discussion? Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm sort of happy with the report, but I don't like what's on page 100 of 310 or page 14 of the
Sorry, what page are we referring to on
it's page 14 in this report,
Right.
this section. I don't want to see the charging bay undercover. I think the thing that's happened where it shows there, the second roller door, I think you'll find that the amount of cars and buildings are going up with these batteries. I think they all should be external until it's refined that we get privilege.
Okay, Councillor Evers? Councillor Evers, yeah.
I won't be supporting this, and I've got quite a few reasons why. Mainly because I'm concerned that by part funding this project will impact our essential, could it impact our essential infrastructures like roads, sewer and waste. And I'm also concerned over delayed asset renewals and basic communities, delayed basic communities. Energy savings are nice, but may not be immediately impactful as roads and sewer upgrades. But I've went through the whole report and I've got strong familiarity with this area. I advocate for rooftop solar, okay, but I have concerns with the combination of proposal. I've run my own figures and I've done this sort of stuff before, okay, and the figures provided by ChargeWorks are absolutely best case scenario. Yeah, figures can be made, to look good, but in the real world, you might find that the actual payback period is actually triple to what they've actually stated on their report. And if you want an example of that, you just travel down the road here and you go to the local supermarket and ask the manager there who's got 75 kilowatts of solar on his roof, and he'll give you his impression. And I don't think I think you'll be somewhat surprised. Overall solar efficiency is less than 18%, so as an example, we have night and day, so that drops down to 50%, you've got dusk dawn, and you've even got sort of, cloudy days. Midsummer, you've got harvest about maybe 8 hours, winter it's about 4 hours. So effectively, then you've got overcast days, so effectively that drops down about 10% of what we're generating. Okay, so the other issue I have is EV sales. I mean, currently they're falling off the cliff worldwide. And we don't have any EVs at the moment. So the so-called repayment periods that we've basically been given will blow it to, I don't know, how long's a piece of string, With respect to fuel running costs, there is a 30% saving by switching over to EVs that have a 100 kilowatt battery and a 400 kilometre range. But to fully charge an EV from dead flat through a 10 amp power supply or power point will take about 40 hours, and at a current cost of about $40, And fuel the vehicle for the same distance travel, you're looking at $58. So, is there a massive saving in this area? And then you look at the appreciation factors of all these vehicles over time. The other concern I have is the VPP battery on the water treatment plant makes no sense. I will possibly consider a 30 kilowatt solar array at best, but my calculation repayment figures are over 5 years, even with the CEUF contributions for the VPP battery. Even with arbitrage and wholesale market the way it is, it's a bit finicky. There is a concern about the repayment period and how much it's a lot of guesswork involved. I would probably consider it as a backup for a council admin building. To prevent downtime during a blackout and probably configure it to supply power outside working hours. But through the chair, to the general manager, does council have a power backup system? Diesel?
No, is the answer to that, not the admin building, no.
No. So in my opinion, I would think this might be a decent application for that. And lastly, I would possibly consider the 15 kilowatt array on the works depot, but not supporting any EV charging at this stage. The repayment time, through my calculations, what they've listed is a little bit unrealistic. It's more like 3 to 4 years, not the 1 year as indicated. That's all I'm going to say.
Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, I won't be supporting this. I've been saying that from the get-go of reading this document. While it might present a strategic opportunity, it's not really going to have any cost savings in the long run. I'll read this out because I want to try and put my comment in a bit more of a better base, because you know how I don't like renewable energy anyway. But as a councillor committed to responsible governance and transparency, I cannot support the recommendation. While I acknowledge the environmental and operational merits of the proposed energy upgrades, including solar and battery systems for the water treatment plant, admin building and depot, my concern lies with the timing and the financial implications. The consultant's report, while well-intentioned, presents numerous inconsistencies. Most critically, I cannot overlook the current financial position of this council. Our apparent balanced budget is only achieved by deferring over $13 million in capital works, including core infrastructure like sewage treatment plant and roads. When we strip away all those deferrals later on tonight, you will see that we actually have a $1.5 million deficit with a potential escalation to $3 million in coming years. And in this context, I do not believe it's fiscally responsible to commit a further $200,000 in reserve funds to a grant. And throughout that report identified several discrepancies. Page 4 of the report states a 50% co-contribution of $200,075, projecting a 1.7-year payback. However, the executive summary on page 3 lists different total costs and payback periods per site, with some sites overstated in savings or lacking full detail on the assumptions. Overly optimistic market assumptions, the battery-related revenues based on a volatile wholesale energy market, suggesting feed-in rates of up to 16 kilowatt hours, exceptional peaks, they're not guaranteed, or average value. Demand response revenue is conditional on securing an energy retailer, and without commitment, an expected savings of $3,400 per annum could easily not materialise. Duplicity and unnecessary spending. The report recommends replacing already upgraded LED lighting at the admin building with premium luminaires, citing improved quality, not energy savings, despite no net benefit. And I just strongly urge council to delay any submissions until we're in a more financially sustainable position. Thank you.
Council.
Thank you.
Are you doing a reply or right reply? Just,
Yes. Yes, they're very honest.
you will have a right reply. Yes, Councillor Trevor.
So listening to all the debate, I'm sure there are some good points raised here, definitely. But point 3 does say, request a further report outlining proposed payback mechanisms for the identified reserves to be provided prior to signing the funding agreement should the application be successful. So we're only, as I read it, we're only applying for a grant. We still need the consultant to come back with a further report on these proposed paybacks. Am I correct?
Director Corporate Services.
Through the chair, that report would come back from, essentially if the grant was successful, we would come back with the financials around how the water fund and that building renewal reserve, how we would apportion, to return those into those reserves prior to signing any funding agreement. So council can feel assured as to that these funds will be replenished through any savings or anything that be generated.
And an opportunity for the consultant to prepare our best case, but worst case, as in what was highlighted with the different times of year with, you know, I'm presuming they've taken that into account when they've given us that information.
So as it does say in point 3, proposed payback mechanisms for identified reserves. So if this is best case, as has been mentioned by some councillors, and there's some concern that it may not reflect worst case or a medium case, then we probably need to know that from the consultant, or are you? Because I know when I've looked at these before, I've normally had a best case, worst case, medium case.
Through the chair, the consultant has put this report together with the grant application in mind, putting those points forward. The components of that report are geared towards some of the guidelines in the grant, particularly the EV transition, which there is some forecasting there around fuel savings. That would be determined in real world by how fast we have EV fleet, and that's not an immediate thing. So there's definitely some conjecture there in the report.
I noted that.
But from the point of view of assurance for council, we had put point 3 in there so that prior to signing any deed arrangement, if we were successful, that we would come back to council with some financials around how those reserves would fund this, any payback. And at that point, another assessment by the consultant could be done on the, the low, medium and best case scenarios if that was something council wanted to shoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors would have seen my emails and responses from the director, which I thank the director for that. My remaining concern with the figures is just what the director was just talking about with electric vehicles. If you look at the table on page 23 of the Judge Works report, it sets out each of the actions proposed, the cost of each action, and the annual cost savings. So the third last and the last ones are the EV charging. And just reading that table in its raw form would give the impression that, yes, if we spend 30,000 on charging at the admin, we're going to make 19,000 in savings, or 40,000 at the depot will make 23,000 in savings. But that doesn't seem to be quite right. We will only make those savings at some point in the future if and when council makes further investments in electric vehicles. And so the cost will go up from what's listed in that column. And that means that the payback period will increase substantially. And my guess is that it would still be a worthwhile investment. I think we would still get a better return than money sitting in a term deposit, but it's only a guess. I don't know. So I have an amendment. I'll see how I go with getting a seconder. My amendment would be number 1 stays as is. And sorry to Hannah that I didn't send this in advance. It's only fairly minor. Number 2 stays as is, except that we would delete the words and submission. So it would just be approve the preparation of an application. And number 3 would be that we request a further report to the May meeting to confirm payback periods. And outlining the proposed payback mechanisms. I think we can just end there. And the rest of it, so what you've currently shown as number 4 would just be removed.
When does it have to be submitted?
So I'll see if there's a seconder and then I'll speak to that.
I'll second.
Seconded. Councillor Trimmer, thank you.
Right, thank you. So the idea is that we need to confirm whether we are going to get those returns that this report outlines, or if not, how much they might be reduced, or how long the return periods are going to be, before we decide to go ahead with putting in the submission. And I would like to see an opportunity for Councillor Leveris on all the points he has made to get some answers as to whether they are valid points, whether the consultant agree or whether they have a different take on them. And that can all happen within the next month. And so we would get this report back to May and decide whether to put the application in, and it's not due until mid-June in any case.
Trimmer?
I have nothing further to add. I support the motion and I basically had spoken to clients.
You going to say something, Councillor Leveris?
I just have an issue with endorsing the findings. I disagree with them. So that's where I'm at. This.
If I can ask a question. There seems to be a bit of an issue about at what time frame are we going to introduce EV charging for our council fleet? So do we have to look at table 23, or does table 23 have to be done on the basis that we will have to get a payback on everything other than the EV, so that the solar contribution and the battery contributions will actually, what's the payback if the council fleet doesn't go to EV in the immediate future? Is that a question you would?
Yes, that's part of what I would like this further report in May to clarify.
So do you want to add another point for that, or do you think that is understood?
I think that's understood, but what Councillor Leveris just said, I think another minor change to number 1, rather than endorse the findings of, if we could change that to receive and note the report.
Councillor Head?
Yeah, it was that a right of reply? No, this was an answer of your question.
I was in answer my question.
I still won't support the amendment. Just focus on the figures. If we should win this grant, that's $200,000 that we're up for. We still cannot afford it. We have got so many things. We've got all of these deferrals. All of that work that's being deferred is going to have higher costs attached to it. The STP that's going to be 11 million is going to end up 13 million by the time that all comes on board. We're deferring work, we're deferring things. We need to get stuff done, and we can't keep looking at spending any further money on new projects when we have current things that we have to get done. Sorry.
So the matter is coming back to the May meeting.
Still won't support, sorry.
Councillor Cole, you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's always good to follow Councillor Tucker, because he usually wraps it up and puts a bow around it. But in this case, if we're coming back to the May's meeting with the report, I think that's good direction. But I also have an overarching leadership role. I think our council, as with all other councils, are struggling with this, looking at this, applying this. So it's probably, if we can do this best practice, we'll just be one of all other councils, and if we get it right, as an investment, you don't get a 2-year payback period. So I just think we follow this through to May, look at it again, and then hopefully we can move forward.
Absolutely. And if the payback period goes from 1.7 up to 3.4, well, at least we've got some figures to look at. And then we look at it as that's the investment we're looking at rather than 1.7. So I'll wrap that up. Thank you. Any further discussion on this amendment? If not, I put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment? Councillor Trembath, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Graham, Councillor Tucker, Councillor McKibben. Against, Councillor Leverest and Councillor Hayden. The amendment now becomes the motion. All in favour of the motion? Same councillors. Trembath, O'Connor, McCarthy, Graham, Tucker and McKibben, and against Leverest and Hayden. Thank you. 13.5 is policy 1113, enterprise risk management. The recommendation is that council place the revised enterprise risk management policy 1113 on public exhibition for 28 days and submissions be invited to council during that period. 2, if no submissions are received in the exhibition period, the policy will be adopted as presented. 3, delegate the general manager to amend any minor changes proposed. Do I have a motion? Councillor Tucker, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Graham, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just moving the recommendation as printed, nothing to add. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Graham.
Same. Don't need to add anything else.
Any further discussion on this matter or debate? Not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
13.6.
13.6. The development application DA 2025-016, new shed, 5 Phillip Street, Oberon. Recommendation is the council 1, vary part C55, building height plane of its current DCP 2001 in relation to development application DA 2025.016 for a shed at lot 53 in DP 506936 being known as 5 Phillip Street, Oberon. And 2, a division be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993. I just note that the word council in one that's written is probably superfluous. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Hayden. You happy with me taking that word out? Thank you. Seconder? Councillor McCarthy, thank you. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation as it stands with that extra word taken out. I went up for a drive yesterday and had a look at the location and it really doesn't have any bearing whatsoever. Everything's fine. Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy?
Yes, I'm happy with it, and I see the tank at the back of the shed, but once it goes to the tank, where's it go then? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that all these houses in this area are the ones that are giving us our problem in the sewer. And same with the ones down in Buckley Crescent. But anyway, we're just dealing with this for now, but there's a certain amount of these properties up here, and if you see this one, you can't get the water to the gutter. So I think you'll find that we're spending all this money on this blue, what do you call it, down sewer drain, and it's wasting money because these are the houses that are causing the problem. But that's not what we're dealing with. You know,
But maybe you could send an email to the
waste of time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Victim Services Inspector outlining your issues there. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this matter? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Page 126.
Page 126, waste transfer station
I have an
operation.
alternative.
Yes, have you given it to Hannah?
Yes, I have.
It was,
I'm not waiting for a second. We haven't
Go a
called for
seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it for discussion.
so then,
Yes,
let's read it.
yes, I'm
Okay.
about to, Mr. Mayor. Do I go now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The recommendation I put forward is one, place the proposed new permanent opening hours for the Burriga and the Black Springs transfer stations, with both being open every day on public exhibition for 28 days. Burriga transfer station open 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The same for Black Springs. 2, implement changes if no objections are received at the conclusion of the exhibition period. Trial non-staffed, free of charge opening of Burriga and Black Springs transfer stations with remote supervision via signage or CCTV until the 30th of June. Terminate the trial prior to the 30th of June if unsuccessful, and provide a report to council with findings. The reason for this is I'm going to take everyone back a year or two when we were all having TI discussions and how to get rid of the TI levy. The communities of Burriga and Black Springs sat down with councillors in that council, and they had made statements that they would like their tip open 24/7. They want their tip to be open like Sunny Corner tip and other tips in the region, where there is no one there is no staff on site, and the tips are clean, tidy, and the community takes pride of place to make sure that their tips are looked after. Now, should something arise, if we give the community the opportunity and the trust to do the right thing, and they're actually getting some more trust in this council that they've deeply lost. The community have lost a lot of trust in this council, and that can be seen later on throughout the survey results. But one of the issues is these people in these villages are paying more in rates, $143 extra in their rates. They don't get anything extra for that. Yes, we did an allocation into roads, but the roads being repaired aren't in their area. And yes, there's going to be future money that they're paying every single year. We haven't done those allocations. So we need to look like we care about our community, because we're meant to be caring for our community. And I want these stations open 24/7. I don't care if I've got to physically drive there myself and double check. But these communities have given me their complete faith that they will look after these. They want them open. Let's give them that chance. That's why I put this forward. Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
I agree. I think we should give them a chance. The only thing I would have asked the council to do, that we have CCTV of those entering and exiting the premises. But it seems to work at Taranah, places like that. They have the 24/7 down there, I think. Seems to work there. So I'll support it. And I also take on board, I remember a survey that Keith Sullivan, when he was mayor, done. We don't even recoup the wages from the rates we get out at Burriga and Black Springs. They don't even pay for the wages of our staff. So to move forward and see if we can trial this on no council staff being involved and supervision by the CTV, I'm happy to give it a try.
Thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking against the motion and putting an amendment which would be as per to Hannah Oliver, which is this one. So I'll read it out. Number 1, that a waste working party of 3 councillors be established. 2, that a charter be developed outlining the roles and responsibilities of the waste working party. 3, that the waste working party consider trialling the free tip initiatives following receipt of a risk assessment with a report back to council. 4, that the current operating hours of the Beauregard and Black Springs transfer stations be retained pending a review and recommendations from the Waste Working Party. And 5, that the operating arrangements for the transfer stations be further considered as part of the development of the waste strategy.
Right, have a second. Councillor Trembath.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'll briefly speak to each of those when I can see them again. You're right. So establishing a waste working party, we actually had thought that was going to be part of the recommendations in this report. It was unfortunately omitted, but it is going to be a big thing over this term and right through until 2030, as we know, with new regulations and ever increasing costs. So the purpose of the working party would be to really go deep into what those requirements are going to be and try to make sure we're providing the best services we can at minimum cost that we can. Number 2 is the charter. That's a direct copy from what we did last month with the working party. I'm not suggesting that the charter needs to be completed before the working party meets. I'd like to see the working party start work in the very near future, so it can start reviewing the things such as the opening hours. Number 3 is trialling the free tip initiative as set out in the report, but I think it is essential that we get a risk assessment. I see the potential for very large risks in going that way, both financial risks and physical risks for people who go in and decide to go scavenging, or where there's asbestos left lying around, or whatever it might be. I am just very concerned if we make a decision tonight to open tips without any supervision. The risk of that coming back to bite us, I think, is very large. So we at least need to go through the process of conducting a risk assessment. So number 4 is just to say, well, let's keep the status quo in place until that happens. I'm open to tweaking the hours if necessary, just to fit in better with overtime rates and lunch hours and stuff like that. But generally, 2 hours 3 times a week at each transfer station. And number 5 is recognising that all of this may change over the next few years as we develop our waste strategy. So it's just pointing that out that that's going to have to happen regardless. And that's a brief outline of my amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's Trevor.
Yes, I seconded it, and I find this is it's timely. It's unfortunate, I think, for Beauregard and Black Springs that, that we've lost the contractor, but the upcoming requirements for the EPA up to 2030 with BOGO, this forms part of the bigger picture of what we as a council need to be focused on outside of the STP. This is one of the other bigger projects that we'll be responsible for. And I've always had a keen interest in it, and hence the reason that a working party of 3 councillors, I would like to be a part of that as well. And we're a new council. We've got 4 years, which places us in a very good position to have our strategy in place and ready to go for 2030. So just focusing on just these transfer stations, I don't think is quite the right direction. It forms part of our waste strategy. And that's why it's not quite that, and hence the amendment that we put forward.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'll be speaking against this amendment. And just on a couple of issues that other councillors have brought up, I've been harping on about FOGO and the new waste legislation changes that will be coming forward, and how we have to start implementing things and getting grants done and so on, that certain councillors keep trying to knock on the head. not understanding the urgency we have. These transfer stations aren't part of FOGO. These current transfer stations are costing this council money. So currently, staff have to go out to the transfer stations, and I can tell you that staff don't just drive out there at the quickest time to get there. They will take up their time in the car to get there and then to get somewhere else. And I don't want to support anything unless it's opening that free to the community like this council had promised previously. The issue is staff wages, staff time. Why should staff have to sit out at a tip when no one's coming or no one's there? Or there might be two people. Someone might come with half a garbage bag or a shopping bag full of rubbish. And those hundreds of dollars that are going in those hours, they're coming out of our budget. So I don't support the amendment as Councillor Tucker has put forward. You can have these working parties, and you can create these working parties down the track to work in with the new legislative changes that are coming up. But the issue tonight is that there are tips out there, and there are residents that are part of our community, and they are part of a body that elected us to work for them, and they need access to their tip. We need to start saving money in staff wages. And what an easy option to leave the gates open and let people put their own rubbish in the skip bin that council provides. I guarantee you're not going to have car bodies chucked in there, and you're not going to have asbestos, because the communities have already been told, you abuse that and you're going to lose it. So that's just a fact. I don't support the amendment, because this amendment that's gone up can be done at any time. You can even write an email and ask to put it on the next agenda to start creating a working party to talk about waste changes and FOGO and getting grants for FOGO going into the next couple of years. But this amendment as it stands does not solve the current issue that we have right at this moment with those two transfer stations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just seeking a little bit more information on taking a step back and through you to our Director of Technical Services. Have you, on the inspections of Taranara, Sunny Corner, other tips that work remotely or use CCTV? The other issue, before you answer that, the other issue for me is I'm all for moving down the CCTV path, and it may be that out in those areas we might have to do it in another shape or form, but like Councillor Tucker, risk, we have to just balance that with risk. And I know in the reports further on there was an asbestos dump at our tip. The gates were broken by an irate builder. But taking a step back, have you done some research with CCTV tips and how it works?
Through the chair, I have not. I'm not sure the relevance of the question. I can currently see that even with staff supervision and the opening hours we have, we get issues that we get TVs in the scrap metal pile, or windows, or chemicals, or mattresses, or tiles, or whatever just dropped at the gate, even with the transfer station closed. So, however, through discussion, we're quite willing to undertake that trial from the Tuesday to Thursday to have it open 24/7 during that period.
How would we restrict non-residents surrounding Burren or Black Spring from attending?
We can't.
Just through the chair, I have, in fact, had a look at those transfer stations as general, not all of them, but certainly the Taranara one. Taranara Village's advantage is that it is within the village of Taranara, so it is exposed. However, have a look at that, they have quite significant CCTV footage that surrounds that particular transfer station. They also use remote signage to outline what you can and what you can't, so it's made very clear to residents what they can and can't do with it. It is open 24/7 as far as I'm aware. but similar to the report, it was, we had no gauge. So that was the intention of the report. My corporate services director said they are in fact meeting with Lithgow on Thursday to have a look at what that looks like in terms of how remote CCTV works in that scenario. So whilst we don't know, and the comments around if anyone outside district wants to use it, yes, but I think it's been well highlighted, especially in the report, that that's a risk. And I think Councillor Hayden acknowledged that it relies on probably resident supervision as well as staff supervision. But even in terms of what we propose in that regard is that we have a number of people that are in and around those areas on a daily, if not weekly basis. And that's how we would encourage the supervision from our perspective in the interim, whether that is done one way or the other.
Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
I'll just will share the original, the previous one. Councillor Hayden.
You don't need to do that.
You don't
Oh,
have
it's
to.
lost.
Okay.
Sorry.
This council taking.
Just would rather reply to my amendment.
Before his right reply, then, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry?
Before his right reply.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Sorry, Councillor
Okay.
McCarthy, my fault.
Yep, you've also confirmed that the one down the road from you is open 24/7. It seems to work all right, isn't it?
It's not open 24/7.
Hey,
The Rockley one's not open 24/7.
I thought you said it was.
No,
Okay,
no, it's open Wednesday afternoon, I believe, and Sunday or Sunday.
okay, all right, I've misinformation.
And it's open, I think it's from daylight saving, it's 2 till 6, I believe, and 1 till 5 in non-daylight saving.
Okay, I must have went in during time.
And it's supervised, I believe. Do you, if I could ask you, Technical Services Director, obviously with your proposal, I'm not, and just that's all on the books at the moment because we have an amendment. You were still proposing that whether you with the paper, which we're not talking about, that the waste transfer stations would be manned on the weekend. Is that because of the amount of volume that comes to those transfer stations, and that we might have to change skips or something to cope with the volume, or is it more for traffic control just for the number of people? Is it?
There were two thoughts to that. Mr. Mayor, one, you can look at it positive and negative, and the trial could go well, which means it could attract waste away from the busy weekends and even it out, which then could leave us to further considerations how we want to deal with that. The other could go negative, and we have to abort it and potentially take the weekend away, potentially finding a report back to council. So there was multiple thoughts on that, but yeah, the main was we get the bulk on the weekends, thinking if the community is available to do it then. But if we go from a Tuesday to Thursday, 24/7, people might be able to do it after work. That then changes the bulk to different hours, and it might mean, well, maybe we don't have to staff it at all on the weekend, and we can move forward differently. But that was answer your question.
Thank you. Reply, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to touch a bit more on costs. Certainly Councillor Hayden has talked about saving the cost of staffing. Well, saving cost was a big part of the reason for the amendment in the first place. Yes, there may be a saving in staff costs to have someone sitting there for 2 hours twice a week, but the potential to very substantially increase costs for staff that have to go down and collect skip bins when they're full, because we can expect a lot more rubbish to come in. I think we will very quickly eat up the savings in those extra costs, and especially if we get something like someone from another area with a big truckload that's going to cost them a fortune if they take it to a proper tip. they say, oh, well, I've heard that Burga's open and it's free and I'll turn up in the middle of the night and council could have thousands of dollars to clean up if it was something difficult such as asbestos or chemicals or mattresses or anything like that. So I just wanted to stress that a big part of the reason for the amendment is saving costs as well as the risks. But, so that's all I will say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Could we put the amendment back up, please, Hannah? Right. I put the amendment. All in favour? Councillor Trembath, O'Connor, Graham, Tucker, McKibben. Councillors, you're against?
I'm against.
You're good. So councillors, Leveris, Hayden, and McCarthy against. So the amendment, so by now, the amendment now becomes the motion. All in favour of the motion? Voting as per previous, Trembath, O'Connor, Graham, Tucker, McKibben, against Leveris, Hayden and McCarthy. Thank you.
We just need to work out a way to appoint the 3 councillors.
Your name is sitting in house. It's a reference. Right for a few minutes. You just ask.
So we can't because we've gone through we've actually passed the motion.
Right, through the chair, I'm more than happy to seek if there's 3 councils who are going to sit on that list.
Councillor Trembath, Councillor Hayden, Councillor Tackleson.
On waste to bring in.
That's what you got there to move.
So we've got interest from Councillor Tucker, Councillor Trembath, Councillor Hayden. Was that your putting up?
Yes, most definitely. So may I freely speak for a moment or not?
We can go to the committee of the whole for a minute if you want to.
I just wanted to.
But can we have someone move us to the
No,
committee?
forget it.
No, all right.
Forget it. Can we have a break shortly? Please? I really need to get some fresh air. I feel like I'm going to pass out.
Well, if you want it, we can break. What's it, 7:20 now? We can break at 7:30 for 5 minutes. Okay, 13.8, policy 1120, community engagement strategy. The recommendation is council place the revised community engagement framework and strategy policy 1120 on public exhibition for 28 days. And submissions be invited
I have an alternative.
to council during that period.
I have an alternative, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, have you given it to Hannah?
Yes, I have, and it is actually a bit broad. And I don't want to put a submission in. I think this is important.
Yes, speak, please. Read it out and then speak.
I'm going to call for a second first. I can't see.
Yes, have you got a second?
Thank you.
Councillor Leveris, thank you.
Yes, I was going through this and I noticed in there, there was the removal of Appendix A. Now, we shouldn't probably be removing anything unless we already have a policy in place. Hence why I've got this amendment. The removal of that Appendix A without an immediate replacement poses a risk for statutory compliance. And that's under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. So we need to retain that during the transition. Preserves community participation rights in planning processes, especially for development related matters. And we need a blended engagement because clearly, just as it was written, was just a little bit lax. And I also note that we have our have your say processes, and it's great to have your say processes, but if any councillors have visited other councils' have your say pages, they all have a little column that says you say we did. And we currently don't have anything in that regard. So we have all of these items that go on public exhibition and we're going, have your say, have your say. And they do. And then there's no feedback from that. So part of communication is giving feedback as well, not just through a council meeting, but we could have a couple of columns on there that state, you said, we did, with the comment, what someone said, and the action into that. So I really think it's important that we look at that, and that's one of the bullet points under part 3, so that we have that blended engagement, establish some KPIs around that and that public feedback process. Because I think currently our have the say page is only halfway there. So we've got halfway and now we've got to go the other way and finish it and finalise it off so that people are getting heard. Thank you. I'm losing my voice. I'm not talking.
Councillor Evans?
I only to say that, look, I agree with point 2, and also 3C is a nice feature. 3C. You said we did.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Can I just clarify with the Director of Corporate Services Director, what implications does it have of retaining Appendix A?
Through the chair, has no implications. Councillor Hayden's right. It needs to be a requirement under the planning legislation.
Right.
The intent was to have the document in its current form put on exhibition and bring back 2 separate policies and separate the planning requirements as part of the new process. But having it within it is fine from our perspective. I think that it absolutely is essential to have it as part of your planning legislation obligations.
And what, in respect to 3A, what were you suggesting? Blended engagement methods, online and physical. We're going to elaborate on that?
Losing my voice. Actually, I'm losing my voice. Blended engagement methods. You have to be out there. You've got to be online. We've got to go back to having meetings and we've got to engage with people a little bit more. You'll also see later throughout the end of the business papers where it's stated in there that people want to see the newsletter back. People aren't getting information. They've been saying it at community meetings. They've been saying it at meetings everywhere since we've stopped the newsletter, both online and in a print form. They're struggling to get any kind of information. So that's part of a blended process in communication. Please don't make me pain my neck anymore. Thank you.
Right. I'll just note, you don't have to respond to this, that we've got a 444 and a 555. So I think we just delete the second 4 and the second 5 in the last 2 lines.
Yeah, sorry, that's the format.
Sorry, I'm trying to save your voice.
Yeah, it came out in the email like that. Sorry.
Councillor O'Connor. Oh, sorry.
Well, look, I do agree with Councillor Hayden. There are some things that we do really well, and there are things that we probably don't do quite so well. And it's something that's new, this had to say. And the newsletter disappearing has caused issues because Facebook is not the place of truth. It's not a place people want to be all the time. So it's not sort of necessarily the only place people go for information. And as an example, O'Connell's got their own community Facebook page. but they are now just about to launch a web page, which is specifically for what's happening in the community, keeping people up to date, not allowing comments. It's not for that purpose other than to ensure that they're well informed and know everything that's going on, and that's even into the greater LGA as well, because they don't believe that Facebook's place, the Village Voice, is not quite providing what they thought they provide. So I can take an example. I'm sure Councillor Hayden knows that paper gets dropped off and people don't even know it's there. It gets dropped off at the pub in O'Connell and it gets hidden in a corner where people get their dinner. That's not exactly the place that people pick up a piece of information. So, I mean, I've been happy to make a submission around those points, but I think that possibly what Councillor Hayden has put here is really something that we need to address. And I have raised some of our communication strategies with the General Manager separately.
And the general manager, I've had discussion because I think we're not getting out there. The village was not doing enough, and we have a large, especially the old members of the community in the areas in the Oregon, Black Springs and O'Connell. They are missing the community.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. So I agree. So we'll get to that when we get to the survey, but
Yeah.
I understand Councillor Hayden's point.
Yeah.
So, sorry, General Manager, you want to say?
I think you as a council elected said that very clearly, to be honest. I just don't want to muddy the water in terms of community engagement process and strategy that we're looking at versus the need for a community newsletter or the need for additional or an alternate comms package that we may have to look at in the near future. So this is a way that we propose to engage currently, like through that policy. The thoughts around whether we have a newsletter or we re-engage or do something like that should be a matter for councillors to discuss independent of this, because I think it's clear from the news, from the strategies that we've seen and from what I'm hearing around the tail, I hear that process may need to evolve in some way, shape or form.
So General Manager, is there any problem currently with what it's planned with 3A, B or C?
So through the chair, the policy that we use outlines a strategy. I think that the A, B and C is a little bit different of that. I'd like to get some understanding around what establishment of key performance indicators, because we can consult all you like. It's what you get back is what we are gauged on, and sometimes that's hard. We continue to try and talk to our community about how and what and who we should engage with. So I'd like to get some information on what that would look like, because I don't currently understand it. I've only just read it, mind you. But the public feedback of you said we did, I think that's an absolutely fantastic idea, because council does a lot of things, and if it's completing that loop or it's providing that information, I think that our guys could take that on board in terms of what that looks like for sure. So it'd just be trying to get some understanding of what those KPIs are proposed to look at. But I think the use of a blended engagement, being online and physical, is the more traditional that we went away from, and if council proposed to go back to that, that is something that this policy will determine as you move forward.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll have a go at the same as we did on a previous policy. I'd like to move an amendment which would be the original recommendation, if there's a second of it.
A second of the original one?
Excellent.
Sorry? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, very similar comments to last time. It is just too much to get a handle on exactly what is meant by 3A and B and C, just only having just seen it for the first time right now. So I'm not clear exactly what those would involve. I think, again, the better process would be if those comments were made during the exhibition process with explanation and with an opportunity for staff to comment. I would hate to have the situation where they come back and say, yeah, A and B are great, C, that's going to triple our workload having to do that, or whatever it might be. I think we need to get that understanding of exactly what is proposed and what the implications are, and through the exhibition process, I think would be a better way to do it. Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While I agree with the sentiment of Councillor Hayden's changes, I think we need a bit more information on some of it. There's too many things to agree to. It either needs to be packaged together or more information on each one. So go back to you.
Councillor Connell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Graham, but also going back to Councillor Trenbath, we've been getting out and about for the last couple of weeks, months, and it's become painfully clear. I know we're harping on this again, but that we need a centralised spot where community can find information. We've got the opportunity to use an email database, QR codes, so we can go electronic and physical. I know, looking back at the November meeting, there was a cost. At the time, we thought we could save that. It wasn't much money, and I would propose that there'd be 10 businesses in town that would cover that cost. I might stand corrected, but I think we can get support, not take it away from us. I'm saying they would be paying us money to get advertising, and we could do a really good monthly newsletter where the mayor's message gets out and gets heard by everyone. So I just think we should all, what I'm trying to encourage is that we all think about outside the box with this and make submissions.
Anyone else before we have?
I have an amendment.
Yes.
Could I put an amendment?
This is an amendment.
Is this an amendment?
An amendment to what? That, well,
You put an alternate motion, and this is an amendment to the alternate motion, so what are you putting an amendment to?
well,
You can speak against it.
sorry.
You can speak against it.
One of the issues is here, under the legalities, where's Appendix A?
So just say through the chair, if this was to be supported, the policy is still in place. It's just the revised policy will go up, and as part of a review back to council, there would be an indication that Appendix A is proposed to be removed and form its own policy.
Right, but going through the documents in here, this doesn't address anything. There's proposal to remove Appendix A in here, but we do not have any policy in place to replace that at the get-go. We cannot remove it until we have adopted a policy in its place first. So we cannot remove it.
Through the chair, the current policy remains. This is a draft policy moving forward. So the policy would stay in place until such times as a policy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. General Manager. I am hearing you, but I am actually struggling tonight that we have councillors that are not reading as in depth into these things and should be looking a bit deeper as to what is in here. Thank you. Nothing further to say.
Right, we've had this amendment that's on the books. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? I put the amendment. I put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment? Trenbath, O'Connor, Graham, Tucker McKibben. Against is Oleveris, Hayden and McCarthy. The amendment becomes the motion. All in favour of the motion? Same as per before. Trenbath, O'Connor, Graham, Tucker McKibben. Yeah. The motion is passed. We go to.
We're going to vote.
Break, please.
Yeah, we can have a break now. 5 minutes. So recording commence, thank you. 13.9 is closed circuit television policy 2142.
Have an old one.
Councillor Hayden,
Hannah brings it up, I've just got to open it in.
It's on CCTV, on just CCTV.
okay, we right?
Yeah.
Councillor Hayden, do you want to read it, please?
Yes.
And you have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll say.
Yep.
I was going through this at length over the weekend and, I noticed that it's going to be a new policy, but before we put this out, that it actually does need these changes. These are some legalities and they are needed. I'll probably get knocked on the head again or told to put in a submission, but CCTV and facial recognition is a very serious subject in any of the communities these days. And I wanted to make sure that, I'm happy with having a policy. I was actually going to talk against having the facial recognition, but I know these days mostly everything's going to come with it anyway. So I just want these protections in place, and it's for data protections, people's privacy protections and the disposal of data. And I think there's something that has been missed when the policy was drafted, because addition to the second paragraph in there, the bullet point under 3 guidelines, we actually need to have something that says public notification, because we can have CCTV, but we need to have that public notification there that clearly informs the public about the presence and the purpose of these CCTVs or smart sensors, smart facial recognition throughout our public areas and our premises. Also, in addition, under the data handling and storage, I note that the wording needs to be changed because it says I've lost everything again there. Oh my goodness. Where it says, oh, yeah, it is. Sorry, where it says for investigation, we can't just give out any CCTV for investigation because it has to be done under a legal requirement. So there has to be someone that has to request this legally to actually get that footage. Because if you have the word for investigation, it's just way too broad. So it should say to comply with legal requirements, because it's a legal requirement to request something because it's a privacy breach. People are just wanting stuff to look at stuff or should happen to say something, and that it's just too broad. Also under there, we need to have, under the data handling, we need to have encryption. I noticed throughout that policy, there's not one thing that states that the data collected will be encrypted, and we need to have it encrypted. Too many people these days hack, and hackers, and it is so easy to hack any kind of CCTV cameras and just watch what people are doing. It's a massive breach, and they can store that data. But any data we store, we need to have that encrypted, and so it's safe. And then secure disposal. There was nothing in there listed about how you're going to dispose of this data that you're keeping stored for 60 days. Like, it's okay to say you're going to keep the data in the policy for 60 days, but there is nothing at all saying how you're going to dispose of that data. And we need to have something around secure disposal so that we can ensure that the data is securely deleted or destroyed once it's no longer needed. Then again here, there's an addition to the access, extra bullet points about implementing strict access controls, and we do need regular audits on this because we need to make sure that any data is going to be protected, who's accessing it, what's happening in there, and so on. And then under identification technologies, we need to have a statement in there. I note in there it said that they will be for council properties, but I've got concerns if that might encroach into public areas. So we've got council properties that are public areas. We need to have some clarity around that because just if we look from a criminal perspective and there is a woman and she's under protection, she's fled her town, she has left in fear of her life and someone's after her to kill her. I know it's extreme, but I'm giving you a scenario. And she's walking through a street or a public area and we have facial recognition installed with our CCTV cameras. A hacker can get into systems, they can get the facial recognition to set a target, to get a target and to send the information back to them with a location, how they can find these people. So these are just things we've got to be extra careful of. I know it sounds a bit extreme, but it's just one way of explaining that. These things do occur. They occur all over the world. Another thing under here, under compliance and review, in the bullet points, we're missing identify any potential privacy breaches. I note that in the policy, there is mentioning of some privacy breaches, but not identifying any, and an incident response and an established clear protocol of how we're going to be responding to these privacy breaches. And we need to include some kind of notification to include notification to affected individuals. It's just something that we need to broaden because I know you're going to say I can put in a submission, but I don't believe at all that we should put this on public exhibition until such time as these points are looked at through there. Sorry.
Councillor Olivers.
I mean, I agree with the additional safeguards. The other thing about facial recognition is that it needs to interface with a national database for it to be effective. So, we can opt to turn that off and on if we want to, but if we turn it on, then it has to interface with something for it to be effective.
So Councillor Hayden, I know the policy calls up Surveillance Devices Act, Privacy and Personal Information Protection Act, Government Information Public Access Act, and Workplace Surveillance Act. From my recollection, those acts deal with a number of these issues that you've put in here.
They might, but I'm talking about this policy under the system operation and management, under monitoring practices, maintenance, data handling, access, identification technologies, disclosures, signage and public awareness, compliance and review, policy review, and complaints and feedback. I understand that there are other acts and there are other bits of legislation out there through various industries, and some of those are actually being reviewed as well. But if we're going to have policy, a new policy for the community to have some confidence and not be in an uproar and say, oh, you're doing smart stuff, I don't want it. We need to have this written into this policy before we put it on exhibition. And there are gaps in that. I mean, those things are important that I've put up there, but they're lacking in here. And they need to be in there.
The concern is if the acts say something and they're contrary to what you've put here,
they're not contrary to what I've put there.
Well,
What I've put there is part of what is in legislative requirements.
well, you need to double check because.
I did double check, Mr. Mayor. I've double checked.
So if they're covered with the acts, why do we need to repeat it? Because it says
because you're
the
creating
operation.
a standalone policy, Mr. Mayor. You asked me the question, I've given you the answer. You're creating a standalone policy and you're stating things here that are not broad enough. These items need to be stated here as well, because other companies have different ways of dealing with their data and deleting of data and destroying of data. I believe that this actually needs these things put into there.
Councillor Tremble.
You get my comment.
I don't think it's going to get knocked on the head, councillor. What you are actually indicating there, and I think it's, has our privacy policy been updated with what we're requesting here? Because this is exactly what I actually picked up Stromline tag for, that they were collecting data, they were storing data, where was it being stored, how's it being destroyed, and they had to actually go back and update their privacy policy. So it's not necessarily in this policy, but if we could look into, we must have a privacy policy already, whether we need to update it because of these changes of ban we're now making with CCPB and collection of data. It's additional to probably what we've ever done before. That'd be my only comment.
Through the chair in conversations just then, and based on what the comments are made by councillor Hayden, I think there needs to also be a link to our cybersecurity policy in this regard, which isn't there as well, which is something we would pick up through that exhibition process.
Further discussion? Mike, so General Manager, are we certain that, I know councillor Hayden's alternate motion, but I think you've just raised it. There are linkages within this policy. It has to be to our privacy policy, to our cybersecurity policy, and to others, and they don't seem to exist at the moment, do they?
And through the chair, the scope of a policy, as the report indicates, that this has been developed on the back of the best practice provisions from other councils, and also using the legislation that acts in its place. Based on the comments that are made by councillor Hayden, it raised alarm bells to me to say, well, the cybersecurity processes, if any of this thing, it'd link back to those, and we need to link that policy to our cybersecurity policies as well to bolster what councillor Hayden has said. That's all I'd say. Like, we would include that as part of associated policies or policies that link to this. That was just one of the things that I seen just by listening to the conversation that was undertaken. Just saying.
That's it.
Councillor Tucker, sorry.
I move that the motion be now put.
The original. Original.
Sorry?
Mr Mayor, I'd already said may the motion now be put.
Should go back to the original version.
Two against.
Yeah. All right, so if you want to put the motion, do you have a second?
Two against.
We haven't had two against.
I was just about to raise a point of order on that.
Yeah, right.
So you can't ask.
We can't have that.
So we can't have a motion that have been put.
Two against, yes. All right, so what?
As previously, where councillor Tucker has, we go back to the original motion, and there's a lot that councillor Hayden has included here that take in, and we have those put forward in submissions, and we consider it when this comes back to council.
Do you have a second? Councillor Tucker? Discussion on that? Tremble? Council? You want to talk to it or you talk?
No, I think I've covered it. It's exactly the same as many of the other policies that we've looked at, where there's significant changes being requested, that we just let them go on public exhibition, have submission, and review it when it comes back.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hayden may well be right in some of these points. There may be things that we really need to include in the policy in order to make sure that we're complying with legislation. But again, the process is that we look at them during the review period or after the review period, check that they are requirements, check that we've got it right, and if so, then it'll go in the final policy. We're not adopting the policy now, we're just putting it on our exhibition.
Councillor Hayden.
Yeah, I'll speak against that. I'm actually going to make a statement that we're the governing body and we are the policy makers. And if I probably won't go to this much length again at a council meeting, trying to make changes for this community and trying to do the right thing by this governing body. We could have saved a lot of time and a lot of headaches by just saying, yep, these need to be amended on these policies, then put the policies on exhibition and adopt them if there's no submissions later on. That's just such a simplistic way. We could be saving time doing that, but no one wants to do that. And I am actually really, really disappointed in the councillors here tonight. And I am allowed to say that because you've got no foresight and you're taking up time and ask for reports and then you say, no, we're going to do this and then put that there, then make a submission. Then we're going to have another meeting and we're going to go through the same stuff again and it will be the outcome of what goes up before you tonight. I'm just trying to save time and I'm trying to put the right information out there in the community so the community can say, look at that council, they're actually working and they're actually doing the right thing. We don't have to say too much about this because it's right. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Won't say anything more.
Anyone else speak? Okay, I put the amendment. Could we put the amendment up, which I think is the original recommendation? The amendment says very in some business papers and things. Right. Those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Trimbarth, O'Connor, McCarthy, Graham, Tucker, McKibben. Against, Leveris and Hayden. The amendment now becomes the motion. All in favour of the motion? Trimbarth, O'Connor, McCarthy, Graham, Tucker, McKibben. Thank you. Against, Leveris and Hayden. Thank you. And 13.10 is the quarterly business review statement. 3 January to March 2025. The recommendation is that Council 1 note the movements from previous resolutions incorporated in the quarterly budget review process. 2 endorse the following operational plan budget adjustments. A, defer $584,871 under the Roads to Recovery Program for the 2025-26 financial year. B, defer the $678,300 Albion Street project under the Regional Emergency Road Repair Program to 2025-26 financial year. C, defer plant and equipment purchases totaling $395,000 to 2025-26 financial year. D, defer the $60,000 capital project for survey, concept development and detailed design of the new landfill cell funded from the Waste Fund reserves to 2025-26 financial year. E, cancel the UV filtration project, return the allocated $150,000 to water fund reserves. F, defer the water mains replacement program totaling $199,000 to the 25-26 financial year. G, defer the sewage treatment plant project totaling $11.5 million to future financial years. H, increase the consultancy budget by $6,000 to cover the cost of conducting a second council election due to a councillor relinquishment of their role rather than resignation.
Yeah.
And 3, authorise the general manager to make minor administrative changes as required. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Tucker, seconder. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Tucker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm moving the recommendation as written.
With that change that I just made to H.
With the minor change that you mentioned on the way through, yes. And in most of those deferrals and changes, when I read through the body of the report, I understood them and they made sense and I don't have a problem. I do just have a number of questions as I go through that. On page 166 in relation to the RERRF, which is just over halfway down the page where we are deferring the Albion Street project. I'm just interested to know why it's necessary to defer it and whether that is simply a resourcing issue that prevents us from doing it this financial year. And I'm also interested in just a very brief description of exactly what the works are that are proposed on Albion Street, if the director is able to provide that.
Director of Technical Services.
Yeah, works are refurbishment works, and currently we won't be able to do any seeding works or complete. We start the whole project will complete the next financial year. We started some early works like surveying and things like that to log at services.
Which section of the road is the refurbishment?
I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
I can't give you the exact.
No, all right.
This is our best, but yeah.
But through the chair, we'd be more than happy to provide that detail. I think there is a large section near the roundabout, heavy patching near the roundabout, heading out. The intersection of Albion Street with Hazel Grove is another section. So I'm more than happy to have the areas provided to council.
Thank you. My next question, page 167 for the water fund, and it talks about the UV filtration project being redundant. And it says that's no longer needed due to other works happening. I'm just interested in what those other works are which make it redundant.
Through the chair, other works may not be the right terminology. It was a recommendation. I'm not sure where that comes from. It's just currently nothing that we look into doing. So I didn't want it in the budget if we're not actually doing this.
So there's a reason for us not going ahead with it. It's not necessary.
We applied for funding previously, which was 2 million, so 150 is not going to give us a UV filtration or disinfection. So there could be more a stalking study. I believe we need to focus, like prioritize on other works.
Okay, so we went for a grant, 2 million, we didn't receive it, so the 150,000.
So that was one of the items that came out of the CRT report, was that?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Page 167, the water mains replacement. So we're deferring 199,000. So I'm just interested to know, will we still have another new allocation in 25-26? In other words, we'll have that allocation plus 199 for the next year?
Through the chair, that's the proposal.
Yeah.
I thought it was only proposed to have just that.
Haven't we finished?
Through the chair, the deferral would take last year's allocation, and the water fund is proposing another allocation on top of that.
All right, so
Will we be able to deal with all that work though? Because if we've had to defer it from this year, then we have another 199 added, I'm assuming.
Well, like any
I thought
due
this-
diligence, like having a decent water main replacement program, I think is good if you've got
How
that in reserve.
How many more years has it got to run?
Through the chair, considering your water main replacement is a ring line that
Yeah.
takes you a while, I'd suspect that you'd be continually replacing
Okay.
old stock with new.
yeah, I think a very substantial portion of the old mains
Has
done.
has been.
So I thought the
included,
funds
yes.
were reducing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two more quick ones. Page 167, the second count back. So we've put in $6,000 for the second count back. Did we already have enough to do the first count back?
Through the chair, yes.
Right, thank you. And my final question is on page 190. And it shows under, I'll find it for page 190, shows $150,000 to be spent under RERRF. So it's on the table and it's not quite halfway down the page. Potholes 1.77 million, some in Albion Street, and 150,000 on to be identified pending current projects. I'm interested in whether they have been identified, has that work been done, and or if not, will it be done in this financial year?
Sorry,
Through
where's
the
that?
chair, sorry, remote. The $150,000 has been utilised during this year, I believe, but it has been used in a more of a maintenance throughout various roads, not necessarily as a capital large pothole situation.
That's fine, it is listed under maintenance, but I was just getting the impression that it was still to be done, but if that's been done, that's all my questions. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I understand the recommendations. Had a few questions going to the budget itself. On page 170, under the grants and contributions operating, the actual year-to-date figures, 76,000. There will be an amount coming in, or
Through the chair, at just before, at the end of the financial year, just before the new financial year, councils received their federal assistant grant, which is where bulk of that is. And then traditionally councils restrict that for the following financial year, but it's accounted for as received, which will happen. It usually happens 3 days before end of financial year.
just going back to, excuse me, current 2024-25 revised budget forecast, 11,879. So it seems that nothing's really changed over the last quarter from where we were back in December, apart from the adjustments included in it.
Correct.
No, through the chair, that position has not changed drastically.
No.
And that's all. Thank you.
Right, any other discussion? Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, I'm not real happy with the quarterly budget review. Zoe, what would be the amount if you removed all the deferrals? How would our budget be looking?
Through the chair, that's the original budget. If I didn't remove all the bits and pieces to the QBR, it'd be reflective of the original budget.
Right. So what's our true deficit?
The actual year-to-date figure is reflective of where we are at the 31 March.
Would you say that we have a true deficit? If we followed everything and didn't defer these, our deficit would be 1.5 million?
Council will be running a deficit look for the profit and loss because a couple of years ago, I might be a bit out on the years, we received the RRF money, the RERRF money, and we had to declare that income in that financial year. So in the future years after that, and this year being one of those years, we have to take that money out of reserves to then spend it, which means we don't have the income matching with the expenditure. However, through the funding statement, it is fundable by council.
Okay, I'm still not happy with the budget reviews. I'm not happy with the deferrals. And as your elected councillors, I believe that one of the most important responsibilities to hold is to be honest and transparent with our community, not just when the news is good, but especially when the reality is complex. And right now, Oberon Council is managing significant financial challenges. Challenges that are not unique to us, but part of the broader pressures facing regional councils across New South Wales. Costs are rising in every area: infrastructure, compliance, service delivery, and this has to place a real strain on our operating budget. The reason our most recent budget appears balanced is because several major capital projects, including essential infrastructure upgrades, have been deferred. This was a strategic decision, I suppose, to preserve financial stability, but that's in the short term. But I want to be clear that these projects are not gone. These projects are being deferred. Why are we so behind in doing these things and doing the jobs? Why are we deferring we should be getting on top of this. And I recall 2 years ago, there was big plans, the STP, we have to get onto this STP. We have to get, what was his name? The Gary Stiles and that, get them down into this council and have a meeting with us and tell us why they aren't getting this done. I remember that because that was the mayor's statement when he was sitting over there. We're deferring stuff. We've got a deficit. We can look at as many grants as we want. We may not get grants in the future, and we can float money around however we want to make things look pretty, but it's not in reality because CPI goes up, costs go up, grants might go down, we might not get any more grants. We're backlogged in work, and I just don't like deferring. I don't believe we should be deferring anything. When it comes to the UV filtration up there, we were told by 2 sets of consultants that cost us a lot of money that we needed the UV filtration. The ageing pipe work, the infrastructure in this community, when we get dirty water, we sit here and we go, oh, don't know how it's dirty, but we're deferring $199,000. We should have been replacing that and getting that work done in the pipe work. Why are we deferring jobs that we should be doing? That's what annoys me. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going to vote for the budget, and that's my prerogative. Thank you.
So I think I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to reply to it.
Through the chair, I mean, the comments about the lack of transparency and hiding something in this, I think is, this is a financial movement based paper. This process is done with the new standards of the quarterly budget review process. We are simply moving what we had adopted in the budget for 24-25 into 25-26. Those capital projects, both recognition of income and expenses, will go into that next budget. So that money doesn't go anywhere. It's moved into the next budget. If a project is not being undertaken, it will be moved back into the reserves that will sit there for another allocation. So the comments you were making earlier that there's a $13 million, I've never seen those types of numbers. This is a process we have to undertake.
There's TP's 11 million.
So I think on those comments, this is the quarterly budget review process that we have a budget you adopt at the start of the year and we are making adjustments to move things into next. If there's project problems, then they can be, discussed at a project level. But these are purely budget movements that we have one budget and moving into the next, and that's where it's at.
Sorry, Councillor, you mentioned sewage treatment plant. What are you saying? 11 million, 13 million? What are you saying?
Well, you said it's 11 million. What was the urgency 2 years ago? There was so much urgency to get things done. There was so much urgency around the
So we have the final design.
You asked me a question, Mr. Mayor. Would you like me to finish or not?
Finish.
There was the urgency around the STP and the rates of rising costs moving forward. This was brought up 2 years ago. Then there was the grants that we didn't get, then the urgency around all this. And I'm concerned about deferring and moving all these things into the next budget. I want to see work get done in the budgeted year and not moving stuff around like that. Sorry.
So we have a quote for this STP, as you're aware of, and we're working, and that is, and it's always been made clear, it exceeds the amount of available funds. We do not want to put this council into a dire financial position by borrowing the delta. And that's why we're not going ahead. We have a final design. We have 2 tenders. The 2 tenders, as you know, came in more than predicted. And we have a certain amount of available funds. If you want to put this council into financial difficulties by borrowing more to get that completed sewage treatment fund up and running. I did talk about earlier tonight that we're having an STP working plan to see with what we can do with the existing funds we have available at the moment. But I'm not prepared to put this council in a dire financial position by borrowing a huge amount of extra money to finish this project. We are doing everything possible to get additional grants and to maintain our existing grants. What do you suggest we should do then, Councillor Hagan?
That's
Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like you to actually alleviate the tone that you're actually showing. But I'm just saying that by deferring a number of projects, it's not helping us financially.
Councillor O'Connor.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Director and Zoe. I've just got two questions, if I could do them separately. There's a little bit of information going around here at the moment that I'm just trying to connect with. So we've got a revised budget forecast of $11,000 loss. What's our financial statement, estimated financial statement of the loss? Or is that one?
That's the end result after the funding has been applied for.
Have you got a figure that in our forecast financial statements might be?
So for traditional income and statement as one would normally see, if you refer to, let me just make sure I give you the right one, page 170 will give you the net operating result on that page.
Okay. Very good. Okay, and therefore that clarifies that. And then in terms of the deferrals that have been bandied around, this may be incorrect or correct. To be prudent, it could be a very wise thing to do by deferring, given our grants won't be substantial next financial year being 25, 26. So we're actually well, it sounds to me like it's a wise thing to do. Would that?
I mean,
Through the chair, there are benefits in deferring, but there can also be some challenges in deferring, especially when it comes to large projects like the STP, which go under more scenario analysis and everything like that. So there's a lot of detail behind that one. But what it has enabled us to do is bulk bill some projects like the resealing to get better bang for buck when we do that program next year. So there has been decisions around that as well to assist in programming.
Exactly, they're the two. The ones that you've got under here in the recommendations, that's what I'm referring, not to the FTP. That it could be a very wise move to do that, given what our forecast grant position will be next year.
And also to keep our workforce.
That's right, that's right.
Yes, fine. Over to Councillor McCarthy.
I'm horrified if we're going to defer 1 and 2, because number B, if you go down and have a look at Albion Street, it's fallen apart. We've got 2 contract road engineers employed, I believe that are on about 5,000 a week. And why are we at the 9th month of the year deferring it? Why haven't we got a plan to get these things up and done? Like, if you go down to Albion Street near Tarano Road, it's just fallen apart. And when you go and ask the director why the jet patches in the shed, we didn't get a response. But anyway, I just can't see that we've got to defer those 2 projects, because it's critical that they've got to get done. They're going to be 10% dearer next year, if not more. But the roads have fallen, those particular roads have fallen apart. Go and have a look.
Councillor Tucker.
Just, well, if everyone finished, just a very brief item.
I will apply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, I do agree with Councillor Hayden that we are facing some big financial challenges over the coming years. And I share the frustration from Councillor Hayden and from Councillor McCarthy about how much stuff is being deferred. We need to find a way to cut a backlog. But I just want to make the point that neither of those things is what this QBR report is about. This is just about changes at the end of the quarter, where our deficit changes from 5,000 something or other to 11,000 something. That's the only bottom line effect. Those other things, yeah, we do need to be worrying about them and talking about them, but they don't impact this report. So that's why I was happy to move it. Thank you.
maybe that's a discussion for the working.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you. All in favour of the motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Grimbarth, O'Connor, Olivris, Graham, Tucker, McKibben, against, Councillor Hayden, McCarthy. Yep. Turning. What is it? This one. 194.13.11. Development application DA 10.2024.28.1 31 lot subdivision of 10A Blenheim Avenue, Oberon. The recommendation is that one, council refused development application DA 10.2024.28.1 for a 31 lot Torrens title subdivision at lot 11 in DP 1143553, being known as 10A Blenheim Avenue, Oberon, in accordance with section 4.6 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 for the following reasons. Bullet 1, an environmental assessment of the subject land has not been provided to determine whether the proposal would have significant impacts on flora and fauna. Bullet 2, insufficient information has been received from the applicant to address issues raised in submissions to the notification of the development application. Bullet 3, insufficient information has been provided to determine whether the site is suitable for development. Bullet 4, insufficient information has been received to determine whether the proposal is in the public interest. Bullet 5, insufficient information has been received to determine whether the development is appropriate in the context of the locality. 2, a division be called in accordance with section 37.5A of the Local Government Act 1993. Just before we move on, Hannah, I'm just wondering if those bullets could be listed A, B, C, D, E, probably in case they have to be referred to. So can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hayden, seconder, please. Councillor Tucker, thank you, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation as it states. There's been no feedback since. Right, thank you.
Are you happy that the bullets be renumbered as A, B, C, D, E?
Yep, that would be fine.
Councillor Tucker.
Likewise, Mr Mayor, happy for them to be numbered A to E and no further comment.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this matter?
Yeah, I just can't understand the first point, flora and fauna report, when it's been heavily grazed by sheep. I just can't see what they need. Anyway, I'm just, yeah, I just can't see why you need this, that document.
I'll ask the director to, planning and development director to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Through the chair. Since the previous application was submitted, the requirement for a flora and fauna assessment has now come into play for all large development applications, particularly subdivision applications. So wouldn't have been required previously, but now is because of the new requirements under the Acts.
That, through you, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
I consider it stupid in respect that seen the one that council done on Losemount Road. Our excavator operator went and disturbed all the soil, and then we employed a contractor with his offsider, and they went and done all the fauna about 4 months after we'd been through with an excavator. And I just think, where do we stop and where do we start? But anyway, I know it's a part of the Act. I just can't see that when you heavily graze a place with sheep like it is, that we need that report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comments? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Bill. Yeah. So we're going to reports for information now. 14.1 monthly activity report, general manager, April 2025. Recommendation is the report item 14.1 is received as information. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor McCarthy, thank you. Oh, you're scratching your head. What?
I'm reading the paper.
Well, you went like this.
Oh, well, I'll move it then.
Right, second, please.
It's all right, I'll move it.
You did go like this.
Yeah, all right. Left hand then.
Look, you did it again.
That's a left hander, don't count.
Never go to an auction.
All right, councillor McCarthy.
The report's pretty straightforward, Mr. Mayor. I did have a highlight on one here and what it was. Was Highland Pines site inspection, that was all.
Yeah, through the chair, the director of development and myself met with directors of Highland Pine, that they're looking to do a renewed landscaping plan, and they're looking to do some road closures on Albion Street, and were asking about what that would look like. So we've given them the relevant information. They'll report to us and we'll deal with it appropriately.
Thank you.
Any further, councillor Hayden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a good report. A couple of issues I wanted to bring up in here. I note, you said you've been working on, some new documents, management of the open sports complex workshop, et cetera, and then on the page after 204 down, towards the bottom third of page 205, I just note the, paragraph in there, oversight and management of the open sports complex. Staff are working on the prep of a workshop for councillors. And it states in here the workshop's being prepared for late March. That hasn't occurred, has it? The workshop for March. When will that be coming up? Is that coming up or?
So through the chair, I've met with the working party and provided some initial correspondence. The working party, I've received a little bit of correspondence back from them, and we're looking at trying to establish a meeting with the existing tenant to try and get some understanding of that. Once we've had that meeting, we'll come back to council and give them a brief on.
And have a meeting with all other councillors, a workshop, because there's still some difficulty around the lease. And I do recall it was last month I sent you an email and asked for some clarification and proof that any lease from the current Leagues Club had been terminated or relinquished.
Yep.
And the president, at this point in time, he is adamant that he did not, and they will skin alive anyone who has terminated the lease, because they've all stated that no lease has been relinquished under any circumstances. So I really think it's important for this council to get some clarity around that, because if the lease hasn't been relinquished, well, they're still in their 35-year lease. And they should just get transferred up there. So this is something that I've been trying to get answers to, which it's been very difficult. So if you wouldn't mind, when you have some time, if you could just address that email that I'd sent through with those questions.
I'm able to respond in confidential, but I'll never do them in public.
Well, it's just an email to me.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'd have one, just to, have we had an indication from Statewide Mutual as to our premium, as to whether it's remained reasonably the same?
Through the chair, that was our initiatives that we look to buy into, so we mitigate as much as it does cost when we looked at our insurance. But as council will be aware, they are going up.
Yeah.
And the premiums that we have been forecast are also going up.
So they're going to be over and above what we forecast.
We have forecast as part of our budgeting. We believe that we'll be close, but that's where it is at the moment.
Right. When will we actually know?
They will provide that before financial.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation that report item 14.1 has received information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 14.2 monthly activity report, planning and development. April 2025. The recommendation is that item 14.2 is received information. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor McCarthy, second Councillor Hayden. Thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
Mayor, the report speaks for itself, but I want a clarification on page 210. The project was completed within the grant time. This is the toilet block down O'Connell. I thought we had to get many extension and a variation with that, so I don't know whether Damien had access to that comment, but I thought the actual grant time finished at December.
Director.
Through the chair, the grant timeline was extended.
Yeah.
It was a request for an extension, so the comment that it was completed within the timeline, that's the extended timeline, so the revised timeline that the grant office gave to council.
Okay, my biggest concern was that we had 2 years to do all this in and then had to ask for an extension. If we'd have not got the extension, we'd have been egg on our face. That's my biggest concern. Had we not been given that extension. And the other one is, Woodward Reef toilet block be open for Christmas, for school holidays, is it ready to go?
You talking about Easter?
No, yeah, now, is it ready? Or is it still locked up?
Through the chair, not ready now.
It's not. No, but I think the questions will be ready for Easter, probably not.
No, I don't think so.
No.
So, well, we must be nearly 12 months and the facility's been shut. It can't be rocket science. Like, I mean, assurance claim, I understand that we asked for something better, but if you ask for like, you must be covered by insurance. But if you want to upgrade it, then the insurance company says no. But surely to goodness, somewhere along the line, the solar panels and all that's been stolen should be now replaced with insurance, shouldn't it? This is 12 months.
Is the insurance claim been paid?
Through the chair, my understanding is the insurance has covered the cost of the replacement of the panels. There was some additional work that the technical services department were looking to do to, in fact, try and make the areas that were exposed more visible. And I think the last I talked to our project officer in this regard, we were looking at the additions to CCTV to, in fact, supply a remote supervision in that regard as well. So there were some additions that we were looking to include in that development.
But I understand the CTV and I've spoke to you about it, but I can't just see why we've got the grant for the toilet and it hasn't been used ever since that damage. Like, surely to goodness, it's something we can do to get it up. We want to see tourism come to the town and here we go. Someone's already scribbled on the toilet block and they, why? Why is it shut? Etched it in the door. If you go up there and have a look, you see the door locked and it's got etched in there. Why? Like, this is 12 months.
I'm happy to tell you on those, but
We don't want, we want some action.
I'm happy to take some action.
Thank you.
That.
Through the chair, the purchase order's been approved to replace it into the additional word.
Question about why was it stolen to start with leads to all sorts of different questions as well, councillor.
I realise that. Thank you. Performance reviews.
Councillor Hayden.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, councillor McCarthy, for bringing up the block, the amenities block down at the Reef Reserve. There's been a lot of inquiry about that. I really do hope that this can get back on track. And if we can't get CCTV, I'll camp there. Anyway, I'll keep everyone away. So anyway, no, it is quite serious. We've got the Redfin Roundup coming back. We've got people that come down here each winter. They travel down from Townsville and that. They said when they were here last time that had just been opened and they adored it. And then they come down and they said, what's happened? You know, we're getting regular visitors back down there that come because of these facilities and we need them up there. Anyway, that's not my priority and what I want to speak to, but thanks, Councillor McCarthy, for that. I just want to thank Damien for the time he's put into the LSPS. I went to every one of the LSPS planning evenings except for Edith. And Edith had 12 to 13 people, which I thought was absolutely amazing. So it just goes to show that some of our smaller rural areas are very engaged and want to have some input into what happens in their community. So that was really good. I know I sent an email through, I think I replied to Damien and mentioned about Michael doing the cable out the front of IGA. Damien mightn't have been at the meeting at that point or talking to Councillor O'Connor about something, but he said that in Mudgee they had set up a table out the front of the supermarket at Mudgee on the shopping day, and I suggested to him, because we didn't get that many at Oberon overall, if he would be able to do that as well, and he said he was going to incorporate that in there somehow. So through the mayor to the director of planning, did Michael end up coming back with any details about that?
Through the chair, that they elected to do the picnic in the common.
Yeah.
The park. And we're through our community services team, looking at supporting that, supporting Courage On by setting that up properly and inviting any patrons on that day to come to the table there in lieu of the one out the front of the IGA. So at the moment, that's not part of their scope and their timeline. Further community consultation down the track with the strategies, it may form part of that.
Yeah.
At this
Okay.
stage as well.
Thank you. I just thought because he planned to do the others, he might have done that one as well, because that was the talk at the time. So anyway, that's changed. That's okay. But I hope down the track he does do it, because that's one way to engage fully with a lot of the community that going in and out of the shops there. So thank you. Nothing further.
I think there's a revisit to O'Connell, isn't there, in May?
Correct. Through the chairs on the 6th of May, as the Courage On, the consultant, did indicate on that night he'd be undertaking another session there, and also as I mentioned, the picnic in the park at the Common on the 26th of April between 11 and 3. And from the time of the report when I wrote this, we've extended the exhibition consultation to the 16th of May instead of the 30th of April. So that takes in O'Connell as well. It allows members of the public to go on, have your say, and fill out the surveys that are on there.
So I was made aware of an incident. I didn't go to Black Springs. I understand that a councillor said to someone, "You're not from here, you don't know, you're from Sydney." Or something similar to a person who was at the event. Is that correct?
Through the chairs, my understanding that's correct. Yes.
I'd say anything like that is inappropriate. I think that as councillors, there's a number of us who were in Sydney who had property up here time to time. A totally inappropriate comment to be made at an LSPS function.
Mr. Mayor, I just had one more thing I wanted to add that I totally forgot. It's not in relation to the LSPS.
Well, I'm talking about the LSPS and a comment made at a Black Springs function to a person who was told, "Well, you may have land up here, but you live in Sydney, so your opinion doesn't count."
No, that's incorrect.
Well, what did you
So
say?
anyway,
What did you say?
Mr. Mayor, are you insinuating and causing an uproar and trying to intimidate again the
No,
council
I'm
meeting?
saying you are
If you-
causing this council into disrepute by making
Mr.
comments
Mayor.
of that nature.
Mr. Mayor, there was no meeting at Black Springs. It was an informal drop-in session, and there were many things said by many people on the.
All I can say is that comment is totally inappropriate from a councillor.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, there's many comments that you make that I find very inappropriate too. But anyway, I wasn't.
Good, please make a formal complaint.
I have. Mr. Mayor, I
Good.
am trying to ask the Director of Planning an important question. I've finished with the LSPS statement, and I'm sorry that you're in an irritated mood, but if you do have any further complaints you'd like to bring up with me, do it in an email and we'll have a meeting and we'll discuss it. So
I can do it how I like, councillor Hayden. I run this meeting, not you. Thank you. What would you like to raise with the director?
Thank you. Damien, through the mayor to
To the Director of, Director,
through the-
Planning, is that who you're directing your question to?
through the mayor to the Director of Planning, if that is okay. Just under miscellaneous matters, I note down in there under environmental inspections, air, noise and water pollution, that it's got a 0 in there. I'm just wondering, was there any follow-up about that contamination issue that was at Burriga? I sent an email through with the person that was going out, and then a particular member of staff was going out again regarding the water testing. Did you get a follow-up on that? I did send through who the person's name was and then the photographs.
Through the chair, councillor, that's an ongoing
Yeah,
investigation.
okay,
There's no outcome at this stage.
okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this matter?
I'll just have the right to reply.
Yes.
The building down O'Connell, it's great amenities for the area. And, also looking forward to seeing the seal under the 2 shade shelters there. Soon I don't think we're gonna make the grade to get the path from what the RMS, so I'm told that the RMS for now want retaining walls, so I'd like to see if we got the funds to shoot under the 2 shade shelters, we get on and get them done and finished.
I think our grant targeted, but for the path, that's, as I understand, is correct.
They're 2 separate items.
Yeah.
One's the completion of the rec ground thing.
Right.
Through the chair, I know where council is coming from. We've discussed it in regards to putting a concrete footing or setting around the existing park benches that are there. And we're looking to do that as part of the same contract rather than getting 2 different contracts.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, I've put the recommendation that 14.2 is received information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. We go to 14.3, which is the monthly activity report, technical services, April 2025. Recommendations that 14.3 is received as information. Do I have a motion, please? Thanks, Councillor Tucker. Thanks, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. Happy to move the recommendation. I just had one question through you for the director, if I may. Bottom of page 217, natural disaster recovery funding. So we've got 1.16 million for some landslips on Abercrombie Road. I'm interested to know just how big and serious and the locations of the landslips. And the second part of the question, I assume it's a typo. It says following heavy rain events early April 2025. I don't think we've had any heavy rain in the last 2 weeks, so I assume that's from a while ago.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct, councillor Papa, that's a typo, but it was April 2024, I
Thank
think
you.
early April then. I haven't looked at the second landslide, I've looked at the first, which is just on that steep hill going towards Skulgons. And it's actually underwashed the road and then we've Bolton, sorry.
Oh, going down to the river.
Yeah, so
Oh,
there's
okay.
traffic heads along that flow.
Mhm.
When you drive past, you probably see them, so they're bolt into the road, so they run north. That is one of them. I'm not exactly sure where the second one, I haven't looked at that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recommend the report, but I have a question to the director, the director of technical services. With the water and wastewater, and later on we talk about drought resilience, arguably what's our greatest resource? It is the soil or allocation, but water's probably, if not the greatest resource we need, besides everything. So have we got a policy in terms of, we're in this dry patch now, as a farmer, I mean, we're really it's deteriorating quite quickly. Have we got a policy in terms of what the cap is or the critical level of our dam? And I know there's competing uses for our water. Have we got a policy or understanding on where we're heading with those competing uses and where we can at some stage say, hey, hang on a minute, the state water We're at a level now that.
So the general manager, there is an agreement with state water, and I'll let the general manager explain. It gets to a certain percentage and it all goes to us, doesn't it?
Sure, we have a water sharing
Yes.
agreement that we have with the state in regards to how critical water gets for humans versus all other competing uses. That has a direct relationship with our water restrictions. So those things kick in when the dam gets to a certain percentage. So they are well documented, and they also protect Oberon's critical water supply to an extent. You'll note that I've been very serious in my conversations with the New South Wales Water about what how they are enacted, and we might be in level 6 water restrictions and City might be in level 1 because they have different competing uses. But look, yes, they do a lot.
So if we've set that target or that benchmark or that level, when was it set, and does it need to be revised given our town's grown, the industry's grown, water usage? We may have to. Do we need to reassess that?
Through the chair, the state has gone to IPART this year to relook at their bulk water requirements, and that is when that type of assessment will be undertaken. We are, however, a little bit at the mercy of the owner.
Thank you. No further questions.
Councillor McCarthy.
Just while we're on that, can you just explain that if we want more retention, we have to pay for it?
Yeah. So through the chair, we have an allocation, is what they call it. We have a water allocation. Back in 2011, that allocation was lifted, but the way it works is that you pay for the total allocation that you apply for, regardless of whether you use it or not. Water rates are based on the total allocation rather than what you in fact use, because that's what we pay for. If council were in a position that they thought that wasn't enough and they wanted to get a new allocation, a process would have to be undertaken. But at the end of the day, it'd be you pay for more than what you in fact use. And the relationship between that and drought is that the simpleness of that is that the more you have, the more you will have in times of drought, to the detriment of other users.
Can I ask you, Technical Services, the weighbridge where I know the footings have gone in, how much further has it progressed?
Through yourself, the footings and the buttons are installed. We're waiting on the delivery of the weight cells, or what the weighbridge applies for, the weighbridge, which are the actual cells, which needs to be coordinated with someone to be on site to install them. After that, we can put the deck on. The deck has a 28-day curing period, after which it can be lifted and remaining works installed. We also need to install the rims. However, there's still the requirement of the gatehouse to be installed, the software commissioned, and the electrical to be commissioned and installed. So while we have the 28-day curing period, we can undertake those works.
So we have a estimated completion.
I want it in before obviously we start our financial year, because we have set our fees and charge for on there.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor McCarthy?
Just as you see on the first page of the report, great job done at the Black Springs Abercrombie Road. It's what it should have been in the first go. And through to the director, if I may, what did you decide with bollards down at O'Connell Fill Point? You said you weren't happy with 4-inch or 6-inch water pipe. So what have you decided to put there?
We're ordering the bollards. I haven't ordered them, so I can't tell you what the material is. I'm waiting on delivering or installing. I don't believe that a painted water pipe is an appropriate follow. As we discussed previously.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, but I'm just wondering whether it's gonna look as if it's ready to be used, that's all, at the moment with the cones around it. Most people still think it's out of action, but it's actually operational at the moment,
Yeah, yeah, it is operational.
but it doesn't look like it with them traffic cones sitting there, that's all.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they would defer someone from building it.
Well, I've seen the traffic cones there for that long, when it wasn't working, they just drive by, come to Oberon. That's one of the older people I talked to over at the water point, and they didn't know it was ready to go. But anyway,
All right. Any further discussion? If not, I put the motion and report. Oh, sorry,
it's all right.
you got something else? Don't talk quick.
Yes, I take the comment from the director that not, the contractor not to, talk to any of the councils out of the tip. But in January, we done a pad for the weighbridge. And apparently we never shot any levels, and you can't shoot levels out of a grader. The actual weighbridge is 350 mil out of level on one end. Is that right?
Through the chair, I don't.
Which means that-
Which is out of level and through.
No.
So I'm not sure.
The
You just
site
said you didn't
is
talk
out,
to the
was out of
contractor,
level.
and now you providing information that I assume you would have gotten from the contractor.
Well, the weighbridge is gonna be level, but by it being 350 mil out of level, that means the ramp's gonna be longer to get up onto the weighbridge.
Through the chair, the weighbridge is not out of level, the weighbridge is level unless the contractor.
I never said the weighbridge was out of level.
Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah.
I believe this matter might be better dealt with by.
So through the chair, the ground is sloping. It's
Yes,
not sloping by 350 mil, it's sloping by 220. So yes, the weighbridge is higher by 220 mil on one end.
Yep.
So the ramps are going to be longer compared to 6 meters. It wouldn't have been 220 mils elevated. They're going to be longer, however, we have room for these extended ramps.
but we had a grader out there in January leveling, trying to level up the site, didn't we?
Through the chair, I haven't been project managing that project. I engaged someone external to undertake this, which is being currently revised.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Motion is that report 14.3 is received as information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Yeah. I go to 14.4, monthly activity report, corporate services, March 2025. Recommendation is that report item 14.4 is received as information of a motion. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Graham, thank you. Councillor McCarthy,
No, it's a good report and it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Councillor Graham,
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to comment that the Youth Week activities, I went to the careers one and it was really well attended. Seemed to go really well, so thank you.
any further discussion? Not, I put the motion as per the recommendation that report item 14.4 is received information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Go to 14.5, investments, March 2025. Recommendations, report item 14.5 is received information of a motion, please.
With the recommendation.
Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Tucker. Thank you, Councillor Tucker. Any comments?
No further comments.
Councillor McCarthy,
Okay.
discussion, any debate on this? If not, I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. 14.6, grant update, April 2025. Recommendation is report item 14.6 is received information of a motion, please. Councillor Everest, Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Councillor Everest,
Speaks for itself.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, no. Report's a good one.
Do we have any update as to whether when we might get an update on the one in relation to the hockey fields, which is second last one on 232.
We've had no action at this point.
So we still, yeah, okay. And And we haven't had one on the board with road design and upgrade culvert crossings, I take it at this stage either.
For the chair, no, nothing, something else.
So a lot of these I see are expected May,
Through the chair, I think you'd expect that you'd either see a lot of the federal ones that have come out just
Yeah.
before or just after the beginning of May, I would say.
okay, no further comments. I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour?
I had,
Oh, sorry.
We've voted.
I did have my hand up, just a minute.
Yeah, but we've just already.
Oh, I just put my hand up for some information too, so.
All right, okay, sorry.
It's a very brief question. First of all, I've always enjoyed this report. It's set out very clearly and you can follow each application through. My one question is page 231, just before halfway down, Destination New South Wales Incubator Event Stream application for Oberon, the scavenger hunt. I'm curious as to what that is, and is it something council would be organising, or is it on behalf of someone else, or it's the first I've heard of it. I'm just curious what it is.
Yes, through the chair, that's a new event concept come up by the tourism team. It's essentially trying to move visitors around the region to have a variety of different experiences. The proposal is for that both to be in partnership with industry to do that event. So it's a combination of local businesses, tourism association, to be quite a fairly extensive event partnership to deliver that.
Right, the council is the lead sort of person.
Correct.
That's good. Thank you, that's all.
Councillor Carter?
Just the last, second last box on page 233. The four trainees. So we've got two on board. That mean we got two positions still sitting there?
Yeah, so through the chair, there's two positions that we've got allocated funding for.
Yep.
And we've applied for another four, yes.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't mean we've got two vacant ones sitting there.
So
Just the minus two.
So we had four in
Yeah.
our structure.
Yep.
Two have been supplied under the round one funding.
Yep.
The other two, as well as an apprentice mechanic and apprentice plumber, we've applied under round two to try and have them funded as well.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion, I put motion, the report item 14.6 is received information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Go to 14.7, status update, April 2025. The recommendations report 14.7 is received information. Of a motion, please. Councillor Hayden. Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, thank you for the status report. I have a few concerns in this report, as I brought up last time in status report. I requested again at an informal briefing session. I understand that it's complex, delivering capital and strategic projects. I get that. But in particular, I want to highlight the residential land development tender still marked in progress, despite over 2 years passing since the original resolution. The Black Springs land acquisition now stalled due to long-standing communication breakdowns and the omission of newly resolved matters such as the Black Springs recreation ground weed management, and it's not in the update at all. It's been omitted from the last three, and I don't understand why. It's ongoing. Just to spray some weeds was only part of the resolution. It still had to have ongoing work, so there's nothing in there. And these things aren't just minor administrative oversights. They're important commitments made by this council, which the public expects to see action. And I respectfully ask the General Manager to provide further clarification on the reasons for these prolonged delays, outline what procedural or structural issues might be contributing to these issues and bottlenecks and so on, and monitor, and can you track these things in future reports? If they're closed, remove them, but these ones that aren't closed, they actually need to be addressed, especially the ones like the recreation ground, Black Springs. That wasn't to finalise that. that motion that went forward, that resolution was to tidy that up, some removal of some trees. There were other work that had to be done. It wasn't just spray a few blackberries. So, and I'm being responsible. It's not respectable. It's not about blame. It's just making sure that we demonstrate that we're working for the community, and we just need to be responsive to those resolutions that we put there, and we need those actioned. Thank you.
I'll ask the general manager to respond to that.
So through the chair, just noting a couple of the things that you raised. The residential land bank team, I think that the information in the document shows the reason. We've tried to be due diligent. We've tried to get grants. We've tried to do all these things to limit the funds that council have to expend in doing these types of things. The Black Springs land, it was a compulsory acquisition provision that we attempted to supersede by utilising lands that we currently own that didn't need to go down a long and arduous path of going through that process. I think I've been pretty clear in providing updates to council in that regard. The management of the common, I indicated that I have a look at. My understanding is that the resolution of council was to do the spraying up front, which was undertaken, and then source grants to undertake the second part of the requirement, which we have lodged, which is in the papers.
That's not in the latest report.
But the lodgement of the grant is what we'd undertake. If we didn't get that grant, we'd come back and say that was unsuccessful. I have to look at other purposes to do that. I'll also say as part of the status, if we take them off, we usually put a comment to say the matter was closed. We put it up to the next council meeting and then remove it, because if we didn't, the business paper would be huge. But taking that into consideration, councillor, I'm more than happy to look at whether staff can come up with some better or more informative way for councillors to look at where status of recommendations that have been complete can be stored or something like that. I take your point earlier, I think in the evening, council, where you said, I think it was, we asked, we did, getting some information out there to our public around what that looks like. That may be a way of better communicating this, so you as a councillor are aware of what the obligations are. But in a nutshell, that was probably my 5-second comment in regard to those matters, but we'll continue to try and be better at what we do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the status report. I found most of the items have been relatively good. Added an explanation, which I've greatly valued. There's one item, but it wasn't in there, and I can maybe it's because it was confidential last meeting regarding industrial matter, and there was going to be an update. Do we defer that to confidential? Discuss that in confidential.
The land matter.
You're talking the land matter in the last
No.
It's on page 272.
No,
No.
the one about industrial, the confidential. Wait to confidential.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to the technical director. Page 256, there's a smoke test, and there's a number of properties have failed. What will that indicate? The smoke test that you carried out?
Yeah, through the chair, and in the connection of failed connection normally is the stormwater plumbed into the sewer.
It's just confirming that. Thank you.
On page 268, in terms of reference to the working party, when do we think that'll be up and running? When do we think we'll have our first meeting?
I'll with the amount of interaction with councillors, I was open to suggestions on when councillors want to have a look at a working party, but certainly with a number of things that you've raised tonight, we'll look at trying to program that with the director in the coming month.
And the MOU with the concrete club's been signed by both parties?
The MOU with the concrete club's been put to them. They sign it and get back to us, I'm sure, but very excited to be on board with Oberon. I think that the infrastructure and work that we've done to make that facility what it is, see them buy into keeping it in the way that it is.
Just to top of 266, sorry, I know you've got your hand, if I could finish now, Tucker, Oberon Sports Complex progress update. You've got not yet started.
It's a typo. That should be just noted.
Noted.
Yep.
Right. That's correct.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have for council Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question which follows on from what Councillor Everest just asked, the same topic, top section of page 256. And it's exactly the same topic that Councillor McCarthy asked about earlier in the evening about the smoke testing. So it says letters being prepared to relevant owners. So I'm assuming those letters will say something like, hey, we've found out that you've got a stormwater connection going into sewer. This is not acceptable. We need to come up with some other way. I imagine it would say something along those lines. Question is, do you have anything in mind in the situation that Councillor McCarthy mentioned, where there really just isn't any other practical option?
Through the chair, I don't believe that if something is connected to the council sewer, it's illegal. So
Absolutely supported.
like there would need to be another option, and it's recommended that they liaise or engage or seek advice of a licensed plumber if they even rectify it. So as part of the letters we attach previous testimonies to them that we sent out with the smoke testing advice, but also the detailed reports from Interflow, so they can identify from there what their fault is and what they have to do to rectify, and propose they provide evidence that by a certain time frame that they have rectified it.
I certainly wasn't for a moment suggesting that we let it continue. It's one of the things I've been pushing it for quite a while, and it's important if we have to keep our existing sewer plant going for longer to reduce the influx. So that wasn't the point of the question. I'm just saying that I'm expecting there's going to be some very difficult ones. And that was all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing further, sorry, Councillor McCarthy.
Just Councillor Hayden read the land out at Black Springs to be changed or become operational ground. Is that along the Dog Rocks Road, or is it still, where do we sit with the original one diagonally opposite the shop? Is it still on the agenda to get back to operational ground as council been? Or has it fallen off the radar?
No, through the chair, that is road reserve, as we're aware. The same issues in that regard as we're having with the other block of land that we're looking at, but it certainly has been surveyed, that block of land.
Okay.
It just needs to go through that process of transition, and you're generally better off doing that when you've got a number of them that you can incorporate into one matter, because council also resolved not to sell that ground previously, so that's why it hasn't progressed too far beyond that at this point.
I'm just concerned about the conditions that they put on, that power's only available on the one diagonally opposite the shop. If you look at the one back along opposite the tip, the power's out in the paddock. It's not where the lady of Black Springs described it being at. And I think it'd be 50,000 to even try and get it to the site. So where the other one's just a low voltage connection in town. So I don't want to see that one in town drop off the radar as a possible site, that's all.
Oh, it certainly was provided to the authority when it
Okay.
was considered.
Any further comments? If not, I put the motion, report 14.7 is received as information. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 14.8, community survey results. Recommendation is that council receives and notes Oberon Community Survey 2025 summary report as the first phase of community consultation informing the development of the 2025 to 2029 delivery program under the integrating planning and reporting framework. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hayden, seconder, please. Councillor Tucker. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation. It was interesting to go through. Once again, still a very small number of people doing the survey. I expected a lot more than 164. I mean, I shared the absolute riot out of this. I mean, it was everywhere. And it was just really difficult to get people to engage. So.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly wasn't surprised. I don't imagine many people are surprised. Once again, the biggest issue was roads, especially road maintenance. So, but apart from that, it's very similar to last time, as best as I can recall. And happy to do second.
Further discussion? I think some of the results are interesting. I know that they're similar to before, but there are some interesting results, and I think we need to consider the survey moving forward, especially with communications to people and ourselves as a council. There's some perceptions that we seem to be a bit disunified, etc. So we need to take that account of in moving forward as a council. Yes, General Manager.
Just for to constant reminder, yeah, there was a lot of similarities between the last one. Health has rocketed up in terms of concerns from our community. That's an emerging issue that I think that we need to be aware of. So that's just a comment. I think those health things, and I think that we've already all considered, but now our community is also saying the same. So
You. No further. Three,
Right reply.
Reply, yes.
Sorry, I would like the right reply. I think when it comes to discussing the surveys, I enjoyed how we used to discuss the surveys prior when we come in and we had just a workshop and the survey results went up and that had read through what people's comments were and how they found things. And I just found it just going into this, well, yeah, it's in here, but I noticed some changes in there around the parks, what people expect to see in the parks. I think roads are always going to be a priority, but there was a lot of disharmony with many of them, and I noticed some of the comments in there, like the comment that keeps coming up with not seeing councillors enough. I suppose our mayor has seen that as well, but and talking about councillor behaviour, that's mentioned several times, reporting and accountability, and the transparency aspect of everything, and that's become something that's repetitive throughout that. And it seems that our community really isn't very happy with us as a council, and everyone's got to up their game, and people need to be seen out in the community and get a bit more involved because they don't see a lot of people. But it'd be interesting to see the background of some of the comments. Maybe we could have a workshop down the track and Matt can expand.
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we could dissect that data a bit more depth in a workshop. There's obviously a lot of raw data behind that. If council wishes to see that, I can put it on the portal at some stage. But yeah, there's definitely some interesting insights that's coming through that, particularly in the freehand components of what people are saying. We've tried to best summarise that, but absolutely a workshop would be, and this will guide the next phase of consultation and
Yeah.
IPNR as well. But
Well, that would be good, because I think it's important. I mean, being a representative of your community, you've got to start listening. We've got to start listening, and we've got to start engaging a little bit more. So not you guys, but us as councillors. So thank you for that.
Okay. I put the motion as per the recommendation. All in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 15, urgent business. There is no urgent business, so we move to item 16, closed session confidential reports. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the business set out below is the kind of referred in section 10A2 of the Act, which we dealt with in the part of the meeting closed for media and public. 16.1, it's water write-off assessment 1237001. 16.2 is debt collection update. Do I have someone to move us into confidential, please? Councillor Trembar, seconder, please. Councillor Tucker, thank you. All in favour? We cease recording. Thank you. During confidential, two issues were considered. 16.1, water write-off request assessment 1237001. Following motion was passed. It was moved by Councillor Tucker, seconded by Councillor Trembar. That council do not write off water consumption charges for assessment 1237001. 2, approve the write-off of $2,389.38 in sewage discharge consumption fees for assessment 1237001, reflecting the portion of excess water that did not enter the sewage network. 3, note the request contained in the correspondence from council to consider the implementation of smart water meter technologies in future operations and infrastructure planning. 16.2, debt collection update. Motion moved by Councillor Hayden, seconded by Councillor Tucker, was the report 10.2 is received as information. 16.2, yes, I think, yes. I declare the meeting closed at 9:45 PM, and I note that the next ordinary meeting of Oberon Council will be held on Tuesday, the 20th. That's not right. May 2025, commencing at 5:30 PM in the Oberon Council Chambers, 137 Oberon Street, Oberon. Thank you all councils for attendance. Thank you.